submitted for your approval. A world gluttonous with content. One might say too much content for any one man to find all of it, consume it all, and make his own determination. And in that world, one little-known podcast. An independent one, formed by a brother and sister team. Its mission is to go through all these forms of content and determine what belongs on your shelf. But what this brother and sister don't know is that they're in for a world where they will do this forever. Couldn't happen? Well, it could. Here on Shelf Life. I'm Kevin, or Rod Serling. This is Shelf Life, a podcast hosted by a brother and sister where we are going through all things in the pop culture zeitgeist one at a time, insisted on by Rachel that we go through them one at a time to determine what
How else would you do
belongs
it? One at a time? Or you would do like 12 at a time?
We'd skip stuff we think is only mediocre,
Okay.
and we don't do that here at Shelf Life.
No.
We are very thorough. So we are going through things one at a time to determine what belongs as part of your collection, what belongs on your shelf, what is shelf-worthy. And we've been doing all sorts of things here on this first season of Shelf Life, from movies to comics to TV, and today we have we're going in the Wayback Machine. We're starting close to the beginning, at least for television. Rachel, what is up for consideration today?
We're going into the Twilight Zone.
That's right. We're starting our adventure into the multiverse. Well, so I guess we should point out, we are starting the Twilight Zone. It's the first season of the Twilight Zone, the first part of the Twilight Zone. So, two things for you, gentle listener. One, we are recording this on our nation's birthday. So if you hear cracks going off in the background, it's fireworks. There are not explosions in your house, car, bathroom, or wherever you're listening to this.
I would hope not.
Maybe not. I mean, who knows? If
could
you're listening
be.
to this in the dystopian future, there could be, I guess. Two, because it's the Twilight Zone, we are recording this extremely late at night. And three, because it's the Twilight Zone, we are recording this with no lights on. The only light that Rachel can see of me is the glow of my laptop. I have the microphone up to my face like I'm an old-timey recording artist, just to give that illusion, because I want us to be sucked back into the world of 1959, because that's where we're going right now. Oh,
Yeah.
Rachel just turned off another light, yeah.
Well, because I felt like, you have all your lights off. I might as well turn some of mine off as well.
I mean, it's possible. Well, we started the recording. There were some glitches. There was
my
some weird
gosh.
stuff going on. So it's possible that some weird stuff could happen to us. I mean, we are going into the Twilight Zone.
We're physically going into it. Okay, that's what we mean.
Behind the door.
We're going behind the door.
Or because it's the
scary
first
door.
season, we're going into that weird cave chasm thing.
true, yeah.
I can't really tell what that is. So, we've been stuck in the 90s for a while. We're going all the way back to 1959. And for many listeners, there's a possibility that they don't really know, one, what the Twilight Zone is, or two, why we would choose the Twilight Zone to start or have a part of in season one. So, Rachel, I'm going to ask you to kind of help answer the listener both those questions. Like, what is the Twilight Zone, and why did we pull it in? Why did we book the Twilight Zone for the season?
Well, so the Twilight Zone is a TV show that likes to kind of poke at the what ifs of the world. Like, oh, what if certain things could happen, or like weird supernaturally things were real, things like of that nature. It's not,
if you will.
If you will, not something that could like technically happen in our realm, but also could happen. It gets very murky. So that's what I would call the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, it's like science fiction and
Yes.
fantasy.
Yes. If you want to give it a genre, yes, science
Some,
fiction,
sometimes
fantasy.
and sometimes horror.
Yeah, and sometimes horror. You get a little action every once in a while. You know, maybe a western in there.
A western mixed with fantasy. Yeah, I mean that's what it is. It's an anthology series. Every episode is different. Which means because every episode is different, we don't have to tell you whether each season needs to be on the shelf. We don't have to wait till the end of the seasons to tell you if it belongs on the shelf or not. We're going to tell you if the episode has shelf life.
Yeah.
Because you can pick and choose how you watch the Twilight Zone. I would say it has a lot of commentary on modern life.
Absolutely.
In the early 60s. And it is famous, of course, what I think most people know of the Twilight Zone, even if you've never seen an episode or don't know much about it, is the twist endings.
Yes.
Which, more often than not, it's not necessarily that there was a twist. It's a lot of they got more than they bargained for.
Right.
Like
Or
the
like
main
there's like some
character.
sort of reveal of like what actually it could be happening.
Or they learn a lesson.
Yes.
Like, a lot of these are parables. A lot of these episodes are parables.
Yeah.
Very, very much like short story little novelettes put into 30-minute episodes.
Yes. And the interesting thing is there was a revival of the Twilight Zone that came out, I guess not recently, but fairly recently. I think they canceled at this point, but there was a season or two of that they
There were
did
two.
that's
There were
modern.
two.
That's more modern.
Yeah. Right. And a lot of modern people would probably equate this to Black Mirror.
Yes.
Black Mirror is definitely a modern. Twilight Zone is more sci-fi fantasy horror. Black Mirror is definitely just sci-fi.
And is
Sci-fi dystopian.
right, which is typically just kind of shoving the stuff that is real into a more extreme version and like just throwing it in your face. Like, this is actually what it is.
The difference between the two shows is I feel bad after watching Black Mirror.
Black Mirror gave me anxiety. Like, it
Yeah.
legitimately made me feel like I was
Yeah.
about to have a panic attack, and I was like, okay, I can't watch
sometimes-
this often.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't watch more than one episode of Black Mirror. Sometimes Twilight Zone leaves me kind of freaked out.
Just a little
but
unnerved.
Most often, like, there's episodes that leave you with a smile on your face.
Oh, yeah, that too,
Or
yeah.
like, oh, okay, learned a lesson or whatever. But definitely not with Black Mirror.
No, Black Mirror I feel like is always that. No, we're trying to make your stomach just turn constantly.
Is Black Mirror on the list, Rachel?
I think we might have to. I think, you know what?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's add that to the list. Where's
Yeah,
my
put
list?
that on the list. Wait, what happened to your What happened to your notebook?
I gotta find it. Where is my notebook? Wait, this isn't my
You
notebook.
your NXT belt fell.
Oh no! What? But this one's not. This isn't my notebook. Hold on.
This is getting weird.
I got it. It was on the shelf.
Oh, she got it.
It was on
Okay.
the shelf.
Okay. Ugh.
My shelf
For a
life
second there,
notes were on the
for a
shelf.
second there, I thought that like it got replaced in the multiverse.
Yeah, I mean it's
or
just
something.
it's just totally blank now and full of pictures instead.
All of that kind of brings us to why we're doing the Twilight Zone. I will sum it up this way. Well, and Rachel, I'll ask you this question too. So I'll go first. I had never watched the Twilight Zone at all. Maybe here or there I knew of some stuff. It was probably too scary for me as a 25-year-old. But I know all of the famous beats and moments of the Twilight Zone because they've been done so many times by so many other things that we
As
love.
parodies.
Like, as parodies or homages, even like camera angles. Some of the cinematography's been done in other things. It's so beloved by our parents and their parents' generation that a lot of the stuff when we were kids and still to this day use the Twilight Zone as homage or parody or inspiration.
Absolutely.
So I knew a lot about it. So maybe 5 years ago or so when I saw that Netflix had all the Twilight Zones, I was like, well, I'm going to start watching them while I like do whatever, work or play a video game or something. So I started watching them and they vary in quality, but you see why people really took to them. because I think it probably was one of those first TV shows that stood for something and had a lot of heart and commentary and was different. I thought it was a good choice to go with because it, as we said with The Simpsons and with Seinfeld, it's kind of the root of a lot of the television world that we enjoy. And it's the same with, I mean, it really starts with the Twilight Zone. You can't get through a lot of Simpsons seasons without Twilight Zone, Twilight Zone,
Oh,
Twilight Zone,
absolutely.
Twilight Zone. It is all over the
Yeah.
Simpsons. But Rachel, what's your experience with the Twilight Zone?
I've always been into like sci-fi, fantasy, all of that kind of stuff. So I'm pretty sure that if this was on TV, I would be watching it.
Yeah.
Even when I was younger, I would watch it. There's a lot of episodes that stick into your head. There's like the really famous ones that a lot of people, even if haven't watched it, probably know.
They know it.
Um, and then there's the little ones, the hidden gems that a lot of people just don't parody or show off in other shows a lot. That it's like, oh well, this one's actually like a really good one type of thing. Yeah, some of them kind of flop, so we'll get to it. But
Yeah, some of them are not very good.
right. So, but I enjoy just having it on, even just like in the background. It's just kind of like a nice thing to watch, and sometimes you can still parallel things to today's world, even.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we'll get into it. Yeah, I mean, it is. I think to this day, overall, I will kind of probably say like the show has shelf life, but we're gonna go into the individual episodes and determine that. When you're talking about the Twilight Zone, it all starts with Rod Serling. Rod Serling is the creator. He is the poor imitation voice that I tried at the beginning of the episode. He's the narrator. He's the writer, and he's kind of your host of the show. He doesn't come out in the first season, but he does walk across the screen sometimes in later seasons.
Right.
But as we've done on other episodes of television or the movies, give you a little bit of background on how what we're going to walk through came together before we deep dive into the episodes, because it's important to know a little bit about where this is coming from and why the show was made in the first place. How did it get made, if you will? I've heard that before. I don't know why. So Rod Serling was, when the Twilight Zone what came to fruition, he was known kind of as an angry man in Hollywood. He would clash with the censors over censorship constantly. But that all stems from his past, from when he was growing up, and was always kind of a consummate performer. He was a guy that was into pulp fiction type stuff, would love, the comics, those dime store books, the radio shows, that kind of stuff. And he's growing up in the 20s and 30s. In high school, he wrote for the school paper, and because it just out of encouragement, like, people realized that he kind of was creative. He needed like an outlet for it.
Okay.
So he wrote for the school paper, and he gained a reputation for being a bit of a social activist. So if you can imagine somebody that's a social activist in the 30s, that's what Rod Serling kind of gained a reputation for being. In 1943, he joined the war, and he became part of the Parachute Infantry Regiment, where he ended up in the Philippines. As you could probably kind of guess, if he's kind of a social activist, he speaks his mind.
Okay.
And the army is not going to stop him. He is sent to the death squad. Basically, he must have pissed someone off, because he was sent to a squad that like had 50% mortality rate. Like,
wow.
It was something where he's the good chance he's going to die.
Jeez, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, he really wasn't a good soldier. He was pretty bad. He just didn't want to pay attention to a lot of the rules, but he did believe in the war effort. So, I mean, that's how that generation was. They felt like they had to fight.
Right.
As we've talked about. I mean, to your point, World War II,
I mean, World War II is my favorite war.
Yeah, it's all of our favorite. There's only 3 good wars, and one of them was World War II.
Yeah.
So the war and his experience in the war affected his writing for the rest of his life. And you see that in the Twilight Zone. A lot of it is about death. A lot of it is about how death can hit you at any time. A lot of it takes place in the Philippines. A lot of it is about the war, which makes sense. I mean, the context that we have to remember is the Twilight Zone starts in 1959, 1960. That's the first fall spring season of the Twilight Zone.
Okay.
That is 15 not even years after the war is over. So, I mean, go 15 years ago from the time of this recording.
Right.
It's not that far in the past.
No. It really isn't when you really put it in perspective.
Oh my god. So Rachel's actually in the Twilight Zone now. She's behind the scary door. I mean, even that, Futurama with the scary door.
Yes! We're going to enter in to the scary door.
I mean, we're not gonna... Yeah, this is... I don't know. We're really tempting fate with my weird, scary hallway, and now you're like by the... just keep an eye on things, okay? Because we got the bomb things going on.
I know the bomb things. You mean fireworks? I hope it's not like a bomb. All of a sudden, we turn into like we're actually in World War II. Oh my god.
So after the war, he went to college, and he became part of the college radio station there. He wrote, he directed, he acted in a bunch of the programs. He met his wife. They had 2 daughters. So he's living a normal GI after the war kind of life.
Sure.
And he kept writing radio shows for different things after college. He sent into a radio show contest, which he won.
Wow.
And he also began writing freelance scripts with very, very little success.
Okay.
So what happened was he moved to Cincinnati. He became a continuity writer for a radio and sold some freelance scripts. And I assume like a continuity writer for a radio show is like people that do like screenplay editing and like continuity editing on screenplay stuff. So he was basically editing and making sure, because you gotta, again, we have to like put ourselves in a world most of us don't remember or know. Mm-hmm. So it's like radio shows back then weren't just, oh my friends, we're talking about what's really destroying America today. It was more, or something where it's like, the fucking Yankees don't know what it's like. Radio shows back then were serials.
Yeah.
So you'd have Batman going on an adventure on day 1, and the adventure would continue on day 2 and day 3. So you'd have to have a continuity scriptwriter so that the story made sense. Very much like ours. We have a continuity scriptwriter.
Yeah, of course we do.
Yeah, for as the season progresses.
Yes, you do.
If you haven't been able to tell this underlying storyline that we have, you people haven't been paying attention.
Yeah,
I mean,
I would go back.
That's
and
in a different.
and...
Well, in a different universe, we have a continuity scriptwriter.
Are you sure we're not in that universe right now?
I don't know. I've totally lost track.
I don't know. I feel like everything's backwards. It's really confusing.
He later kind of said that if he could do it all over, he wouldn't have become a staff writer because he was basically giving away his ideas.
Gotcha.
Like, because he had to keep churning scripts out, it was how much of this am I going to be able to do before I can't come up with an idea anymore for himself? So he didn't think radio was keeping up with TV, so he decided to become a writer for TV. So he kind of changed his profession. He started writing commercials, basically, and 1950s style commercials, where it was for, like ointments and snake oil and stuff like that, garbage.
Right.
Eventually, he went full freelance, and he hired an agent who convinced him to move to New York. And he wrote a script that aired on TV in 1955 called Patterns for the Kraft Television Theater, which he didn't see as anything special. He just wrote a script. It was a typical, what he thought was a Rod Serling script. He turned it in, get the money, move on. He didn't even watch it.
Okay.
But after it aired, he received a ton of offers. It was apparently considered, at the time, one of, like, the best things people had seen on television.
Okay.
The story was about a boss that was running out of ideas. He was getting old, and this young executive was being groomed to take his place. And instead of firing him and making it obvious that he didn't want the guy taking his place, he enlisted him and pushed him to the side, made sure he got rid of his competition.
Yeah.
So it's like a very dark, it sounds like a Rod Serling thing, right?
Yeah, no, it does, absolutely.
So suddenly he becomes kind of this well-known, imagine today, you could probably find, wow, that was a really good script or screenplay or whatever, or book or, whatever. So like now suddenly people want more. He didn't have a ton of stuff at the time, so he had all this demand. So he just started selling all of his old shit, and people published it, and he was like, oh crap, that was like all my garbage. And people started questioning whether or not he was a one-hit wonder. But then he started making a couple new things. People recognized how good it was. And he moved the family to California because that's really where you needed to be if you were going to be in TV and film.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes sense.
So when he was there writing stuff, this is where he has an issue with the censors. So again, Rachel, think of 1950s. Censorship is rampant.
Oh, yeah.
We haven't talked about it a lot with comic books because we haven't gone into the 60s with comics yet, but this is like the McCarthy era. This is the Red Scare era. Mm-hmm. This is truth, justice, and the American way.
Yeah, exactly.
So getting away with a lot of stuff on television is probably pretty damn hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
And he was forced to change scripts from corporate sponsors who thought some of his scripts were too controversial. They didn't want to do anything that would make the consumers question social issues. They didn't want anything that could make their competitors look good or them look bad. Mm-hmm. And there was one episode that I was able to dig up a couple of different. There's a few examples of like different things where he tried to push the envelope because again he's kind of he's an instigator.
Sure.
He wants people.
To stir the
he
pot
wants
a
people
bit.
to think.
Yeah.
He wants people to think. He's a George Carlin. He's whatever. So he wrote a script where Jewish pawnbroker was lynched, which I like. Yeah, I know. Like we're talking the middle 50s. He was doing this.
Wow. Okay.
And he was doing it as a parable for the Emmett Till trial, or Emmett Till. Emmett Till was a black man in the Jim Crow South, got lynched. So he was literally pulling this from current events,
right.
like a Law and Order episode.
Absolutely. And they do it. They do it.
Folks at home, if you want us to do some Law and Order, pick your favorite episodes. Like, I know we've said time and time again we're going to go episode by episode, but we just don't have time for Law and Order. There's like 80 seasons. It'd be like us doing Gunsmoke.
It's still going.
He continues to get really good reviews. He continues to... It becomes kind of known that he's frustrated with censorship. And like even the critics kind of know this. They start to kind of understand it. He kind of said like, you can't do one thing or they'll say you're a Republican. You can't do another thing and they'll say you're a Democrat. The censors and the TV studios don't want to deal with it, which, can't say that a lot has changed, but
no, not really.
So I'm sure some people out there have made assumptions about us after in the middle of the first season.
Don't they always? Isn't that how it works? You're judged the second you show your face or voice.
I'm not on Twitter. And my real name, again, we're using fake names. But, so all of this was happening. He decides the only way he can avoid artistic interference is to create his own show. So, again, he's kind of a very well-known and well-respected writer at the time. So he probably has some sway to make his own show, and it's a totally different world, the television world back then. So it might have been easier to be able to make your own show. In an interview with Mike Wallace, he said, "I don't want to fight anymore. I don't want to have to battle sponsors and agencies. I don't want to have to push for something that I want and have to settle for second best. I don't want to have to compromise all the time, which in essence is what a television writer does if he wants to put on controversial themes." And I know that's going into a little bit of Casey Kasem, but it's kind of similar. Rod Serling is Casey Kasem with like a lower register.
Pretty much.
Serling submits the time element to CBS. It's a pilot for the Twilight Zone. So it's an episode called The Time Element. CBS doesn't want to give him his own show, so they use it as a science fiction script for a different show called Westinghouse Desilu Playhouse in 1958. So it was Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball. Had another spin-off anthology series. Anthology series were kind of big back then,
Yeah.
It was a story about a man who has vivid nightmares of Pearl Harbor. He goes to a psychiatrist, and after a session, there's a twist ending where the patient had died at Pearl Harbor, and the psychiatrist was having dreams
Oh.
about. Yeah, I mean that gives me chills just saying
I like
that.
it.
Like in my grayscaled empty room with no lights on, and the fireworks have stopped, so now it's even eerier.
A little bit.
The episode got so much fan response. CBS let Sterling go ahead with the pilot. So I think the time element isn't on. We're doing this now, folks, because we don't really know where you'll be able to find the Twilight Zone. It's kind of spooky in that way. I'm guessing it's on
all over the
Paramount
damn
Plus.
thing.
Well, I think they're pulling it back into Paramount Plus. Like I think
No,
that's why
that's
it
what I
left
think
Netflix.
they're doing. Yeah, that's what I think is happening.
So that's how the Twilight Zone became a thing. And at the time, sci-fi was considered kind of dime store trash. It was like the dregs of television. People were kind of even saying to Serling, we're kind of like, hey, when are you going to stop doing this sci-fi shit? When are you going to get into like drama or something like that?
Okay.
It sounds like comic books were back then too, where it's like, this is garbage.
Mm-hmm.
You can't possibly put anything smart in this or any message in this.
Right.
It's trash.
Which okay, hold on a second, because if you look at anything freaking sci-fi, they all have messages. They all do that.
That's
That is
kind
like
of the point
of
sci-fi.
sci-fi.
but that's always like, you know, one generation doesn't understand, and
Sure.
so they don't necessarily see. I'm sure there was a lot of trash. There's a lot of trash
yeah.
now that people kind
Yeah.
of say, like, I don't know why you like that trash. But there's gems, and there's stuff that does do good. Like,
Exactly.
quite frankly, I don't understand why TikTok exists. And
Well, I don't either. So I can't be the other person on this one.
a world of videos, TikToks, 5 seconds long, people dancing. They send it to their friends. Why is it funny? I don't understand. The Twilight Zone. So, the Twilight Zone debuts. I don't know if the time element is something you can see on streaming. It wasn't like the first episode for me, but we have our first pilot, our first episode debuts on October 2nd, 1959. It is entitled Where Is Everybody? We will get into it. Rachel, anything else to discuss about the Twilight Zone or its history or your thoughts or feelings before we deep dive into the Twilight Zone?
Oh no, I'm ready to get going. Let's do this. Let's jump in.
Let's do it. Let's do this. After a short break from our fake sponsor, we will start with Where Is Everybody?
Twilight Zone has been brought to you by Milk Wave Lilt, the new home permanent you mix with milk for curls that start soft and stay lively.
We're back. Rachel had some technical difficulty, or she heard something.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay,
We can keep
I
going.
mean, it could have been Shaquille O'Neal.
Probably.
But-
You know, it could have been.
So, we begin our journey in the Twilight Zone, October 2nd, 1959, with Where Is Everybody? Rod Serling is the writer, as he will be for most of the first season, if not the whole thing. And he's not for the whole thing, but he is for most of the first season. And directed by Robert Stevens. So, I'm going to just do the first narration, and we'll go from there. There is a fifth dimension, beyond that which is known to man. It is a dimension as vast as space and timeless as infinity. It is the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of men's fear and the summit of his knowledge. This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area we call the Twilight Zone. Exactly. Thank you. Although I think in the first season it just kind of goes like it just kind of like
that's
fades
true.
a little
It
bit more.
does. It does.
It doesn't have the iconic doody doo doo doody
No, yeah, or the
quite yet.
or the blink 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 blink.
It's much more menacing.
It is.
At this point.
It's quiet. It's creepy.
So a lot of the score for the Twilight Zone is Bernard Herrmann. Bernard Herrmann is most famous for one of the most famous scores in the history of cinema, which I'm going to do the sound to freak Rachel out right now because, like I said, it's super late and we have all the lights off. It's dun-dun, dun-dun.
You know that used to scare the hell out of me.
Dun-dun, dun-dun. So yeah, he did the score for Psycho, and he does a lot of the score here, and you can kind of tell. The theme definitely holds up. Some of the score is very old-timey sounding, but we'll get into the different ones that we found the score is a little bit different. So the episode starts, or the show starts. It doesn't have the iconic theme like we said, and instead of taking us through the scary door, it takes us into this like barren land, like an empty cavernous land. But the pan down, it is the usual opening where like you're in the stars and then it pans down into the world, into the Twilight Zone. So we open with a guy. He's wearing a Mike Myers-like jumpsuit, and he's walking around kind of like empty fieldish kind of area.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and the only way I could describe it was a Mike Myers-like jumpsuit.
I
Mike
hate
Myers
that you
is
say
Halloween.
that. I keep. Why are you bringing up everything that like?
I'm trying to get everyone, the folks at home. I'm trying to get you in the mood here.
Oh,
if you're listening to this, if you listen to us like, you know, on your regular basis, like great. But if you can, try to make this, you know, kind of a midnight listen of Shelf Life. Or at least watch the episodes if you're one that likes to watch the episodes before you listen to our show about it. Watch them at night, because like I always think of Twilight Zone as being like a midnight show. It's like a show to make you
or like do
unsettled
the witching
before
hour.
you go to bed. Yeah.
Because it's like
and I
anything
mean,
could
it was
happen.
on in prime time. It was on in prime time at the time. Now it kind of comes on at
like
midnight.
3 o'clock in the morning, and then
or 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. sometimes it's not when I wake up. It's like it's like 6 in the morning. Twilight Zone.
Are you actually awake though? The Twilight Zone.
So he hears music, and there's a cafe nearby. So he enters the cafe, but there's no one in it. And there's a jukebox on, but he can't find anybody. And he goes out back, and he's trying to order food, and he's trying to figure out who's playing the music.
Yeah, and like the
But
way
he can't
he's just
find
like
anyone.
yelling it, like, "You have a customer."
Eggs over easy. Hash browns. Hey, you got a customer out here. Ham and eggs over easy, hash brown. Hungry cash customer. I got $2.85, American money. Sure, American money. Well, we got that much settled. I'm an American.
You got a customer here.
Paying customer.
Ham and eggs over easy.
Yep, he just keeps
You
yelling it.
gotta talk like your 1950s style, New York 1950s style, no matter where you actually are. And he's got how much money does he have? Oh, $2.85. I got $2.85 American cash, and I'm hungry.
Apparently, I'm American.
I'm hungry.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so we kind of find out that he doesn't know who he is, but he knows he's American because he knows he has American cash. So like he has like some kind of amnesia going on, and he breaks an egg timer here. Like an egg timer falls on the floor,
Right.
Which is a little bit of clumsy foreshadowing, but that is foreshadowing.
It is,
into
but
the
I
look
don't
of
even know if you could
reality.
call it that clumsy. I don't know if a lot of people would catch that right away.
That's true. I have the benefit of having seen it before.
Right.
I mean, one thing to point out too is, like we said in the first part, Twilight Zone episodes are known for twists. So if you don't want the twists spoiled, watch those episodes first before we go through them with you.
Yeah, agreed.
Because we are going to go through everything and spoil the twist.
So pause your podcast now, and we'll wait. Don't worry. Go ahead and pause.
Yeah. Okay,
and
so
and then
pausing.
and then we'll come back. So hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. Okay. I think we can start now. Yes. Okay. Spoiler zone. Okay, we are now in spoiler zone.
And we are from now on with all the episodes that we do. So he talks to no one through this. This is all just him talking. He tries to tell himself to wake up. He tells himself, like, come on, buddy, just wake up, wake up. He says it a couple times. He's not far off. Really?
Yeah, no.
But he does keep trying to tell himself, like, wake up, wake up. Like, he thinks he's got to be in a dream because
everything's weird.
Yeah, it's weird. So he finishes
it's like just
breakfast.
like someone. It's like everything seems right except stuff was plucked right out of what was happening right then.
Yeah. So he finishes the breakfast and he walks to a town. There's like a town nearby. It looks like Hill Valley. It looks like the Hill Valley set to me from Back to the Future.
It does. It really does look like Hill Valley.
Like, I don't know if it's the same set. I don't know if, like, Robert Zemeckis thought, I'm going to use this for... Or, like, I remember the Twilight Zone and I kind of want it to look like that. Or if towns in 1950s USA looked like that. But it looks very much like Back to the Future, I thought.
No, I agree. I definitely agree.
Because it has that whole town square vibe to it. So the first thing he does once he walks into town, I said, this is the quintessential, we're at the tail end of coronavirus pandemic in the United States. It's the quintessential COVID episode for the Twilight Zone. This is a man that is walking around in an empty town. There's signs of people there, but he can't figure out why. And it just reminded me of COVID. Like Rachel,
of how
did you get any of that?
Whenever you watched like video of with the drones and everything of like deserted areas that are usually like
there's signs of people,
tons of people,
but you can't find them.
Yeah, they're just like hiding. It feels like everybody's just hiding, and you could just
yell
out like
"Ollie,
Oxenfree," and then they would all like around
which
the tree
is a very
and stuff.
50s expression.
Yes, but that's what it feels like. All of a sudden they'd be like, "We're here," and they all are like leaning outside of the tree or something. Like it's just weird.
Did he forget his birthday? And this is like a whole town surprise.
Yeah, that's it. It really does feel that way.
But it's like this emptiness, and that's like kind of where like I got that vibe. It does kind of feel that way, just like coming off of, not that I really cared, I enjoyed it, but a lot of people didn't, and so I could understand that, having that feeling watching this episode. Mm-hmm. So he sees a woman in a car, he runs over to it, going, "Oh, hey, miss! Hey, miss!" And it turns out to be a mannequin.
Which I thought was weird. Okay, why is there a mannequin sitting in the passenger seat of a car?
Because it's creepy. I don't know if it's Rod Serling or like him and the cast and crew all found mannequins creepy, but we will get into another episode where mannequins are creepy.
Yes.
But they understand that, and they're right, because I thought for a second. Well, first of all, so he opens the door to say hi to the woman, and it turns out to be a mannequin, so she falls onto the ground, the mannequin does.
And then he apologizes to her. And...
He apologizes to her, he starts talking to her. Did you catch the fly that lands on the car door? It sits there for a second.
I don't think I saw that.
Yeah, there's like a fly that just kind of comes and like sits on the car door. It was like in the middle of the frame, and I couldn't stop looking at it.
Oh my god.
One thing that I will say, the quality, I don't know if this is like a Blu-ray scale that I watched, but it is very good looking.
Yeah.
It's a very good looking print, or whatever it is, scan or whatever it is. But yes, there was a fly on the door. And then he walks into the store where the car was parked with the mannequin in it, and there's a bunch of other mannequins in the entranceway.
Yeah.
And I started freaking the fuck out. Because that is some scary shit, And I thought that it was going to go into a totally different
direction.
World. Like if he
Oh my
starts going
God.
into that store, we're into a different episode. Here.
It feels like you could absolutely be in a different episode at that point. Yes.
But he kind of just walks in, he shouts again, and he walks out. And the emptiness is sort of unsettling, and the score kind of like is depicting that everything is just more unnerving, that you can't figure out where everyone is at and like what's going on. So there's a phone booth, which I don't think we need to explain what a phone booth is unless we want to do the old, oh, you see, kids, back in my day.
Back in my day.
I think people are smart enough to kind of know phone booths were a thing before cell phones, and towns would have them all over the place.
I would hope so.
He decides to go and... No. He doesn't decide to, like, call someone. The phone starts to ring. Which is, again, even creepier. So he runs to answer the phone because he's trying to find someone. And it's just an operator. It's just,
it's like a recording. It's
a
just a
recording on another end. And he's trying to tell the operator, like, I'm trying to find somebody.
Yeah.
Hello? And it's just a recording. So he gets frustrated. Now, this is what I didn't understand. He shuts the door behind him. And I get that that's probably like a reflex for anyone back then. You would just shut the door behind you to the phone booth. But it's not like anybody outside of the phone booth is going to listen to your conversation.
Well, I mean, I guess that's because the door folds, so, like, it would be a little uncomfortable having it open? No, I don't know. I don't know.
You lose a little bit of space, but I thought it was weird that he was... it has to just be a
normal reflex. Yeah.
And he desperately pleads with the recording. I mean, who hasn't desperately pled with a customer service line, right?
Yeah, like, just hit 0
I've shouted
times.
at a customer service line, like, I've said the same thing. I'm pretty sure I've said this same
I think we talked about this.
That he said verbatim. Yeah, we talked about it on our Small Soldiers episode.
Yeah.
This is just another example where I've just been, like, desperately like, I'm just trying to find somebody. I'm just trying to find anybody.
I just want a human. Please give me a human. I have said that to the computer before. Please, just give me a human. Just give me a human.
When he's in the phone booth, they do this close-up on his face, which I think is supposed to show, like, claustrophobic. There's a lot of good cinematography work in this episode, and I don't know if that's due to the director, Stevens, or, you know, they were just testing some stuff, or this kind of stuff was done a lot back then.
Right.
But I don't know if it was done a lot for television back then, and folks at home let me know. But it is just this, like, zoom in on his face, and you can just kind of see, like, he's getting more freaked out as these events happen to him. And it's in really good HD. You see stubble on his face.
It does look really good. They did a good job of redoing, like, or I guess, like, refining these. I think they did that with the...
They had to.
There's no way.
Yeah, there's no way. I mean, film is better than digital when it comes to details like that, but... It looks really good.
For it to come up that way on our TVs, it would have to be redone.
And I'll give credit to the actor here too, because Rachel, I remember you and I watched this episode with each other for the first time, like years ago. And I remember we felt it. We felt like it was creepy. Because we didn't know what was going to happen.
No.
And like the tension is just building and building, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. But Earl Holliman, who is the actor who plays, we end up learning his name is Mike Ferris at some point during the episode. His face here is perfect, too, because it is just so desperate.
It does. He does look, like, very desperate, very anxious, like, overwhelmed by everything that's happening. You can just kind of, like, feel it emanating off of him. His eyes just look a little wild.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. His eyes look wild. He tries to get the door open to get out of the phone booth, and he can't get it open right away, and he starts to frickin' panic. And
oh my god, yeah, like he got trapped in there.
Yeah, so and I liked that too. One, it's foreshadowing, and two, like, I would do the same thing, even if I wasn't in a panic. Just that feeling of you can't get out of a small area.
Yep.
It was really good.
Right.
Eventually, he is able to get it open, and he sees, like, a police department, so he decides to go check out the police department. And again, there's no one there, and he's walking around, but he sees a cigarette, or like a freshly put out cigarette.
I think it's just. I think it's just sitting. I think it's like lit,
smoking.
and it's still like just sitting on the edge. Like if somebody was smoking it, they just set it down for a second.
Yeah, because it's still smoking. They didn't like light it. They didn't like.
Yeah, they
put it
didn't
out.
like
You're right.
like push it down. I don't I don't smoke, so but I'm pretty sure it's just like sitting there. As if somebody just like dropped it without putting it out.
And he's trying to keep light. He picks up like the radio thing.
Oh yeah,
maybe
makes
he's
a joke.
hoping that because they don't recognize him on his end, they'll be like, who is this? Why are you on
and
this
then
line?
come running like, why are you in here? Yeah, I think that might be a part of it, but at least he is still like trying to make a joke. Ha ha ha! Like, okay, come get me, someone come help.
Right. It's very akin to different things nowadays where somebody tries to get arrested on purpose to like get saved.
Yeah.
Like in Happy Death Day. that happens.
It does.
So he wishes he could shake this crazy feeling he's being watched and listened to.
Mm-hmm.
But he has this feeling that he's being watched and he's being listened to. But he can't quite understand why.
I kind of
again,
do too,
like,
I don't know.
You kind of feel like, are you being watched and listened to?
Right.
While you're watching the show. It's like this it makes you feel tense while you're watching it. He goes in the cells because he hears something in one of the cells.
Right.
And in one of the cells is shaving cream,
Yep.
the old-timey, like, brush that you'd put on your face to shave.
One of those big brushes.
Which I still think would come in handy now. Like I think
they still use it in some places.
Like if I went to like an old timey barber to have it done.
Yeah, I think if you went to like a barber.
Put that on. Yeah, I mean I may or may not have facial hair, but I have not ever done a straight razor.
Like someone else do a straight razor for you, or have you? Ever
I've gotten
done
a straight razor. I've had the girl who cuts my hair at the place where I go, sometimes they'll be like, "Oh, do you want the back of your neck shaved?"
Ah.
And if I'm feeling, risky or dangerous, I'll be like, oh yeah, put it on there, and then put like a hot towel on there, and then they like put the cream on and like shave it. It's an awesome little feeling. So I could imagine like, ooh.
Yeah, I may or may not have a beard as well, but when I shave with a straight razor. On my legs, I understand that nice like feeling.
Women shave not every day. He's in there. The shaving equipment's there, which again, someone was here. Someone is here.
Right.
At this point, I was kind of thinking like, is it ghosts? What is this?
Right. Is it like a apocalypse world? Like what's happening?
Well, and it gets even creepier because he's standing in the cell and the door.
Oh my god, that gave me chills.
Behind him. Yeah, that is terrifying. Because like if that door closes, he's fucking stuck there too.
That gave me chills. Seeing the cell door start to move. He
and they do it,
and it's like
they do it really well too because they don't show you the door; they just have the shadow.
Yes, and then all of a sudden he goes like
across,
and it's just like, oh my god, that gave me chills, goosebumps. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. Like, like in this world where you can't find a human and now you're trapped in a cell. That's it. That's it.
Yeah, he'd be done. He does manage to get on the other side of the cell though before it closes, so he's not locked in the cell.
Right.
He runs out of there. He looks directly into the camera and he goes, "Where is everybody?" And before we go to a commercial break, which is very old-time TV, I thought. Because, like, most of the time now, you don't have your characters look at the camera or acknowledge that there's a fourth wall there. Unless it's
they're not really supposed to, like, look directly at the camera. And then they look at and it feels like they're looking at you and asking you, where the hell is everybody?
I mean, I could see. Maybe we should bring that back. I don't know. Thinking about different television shows that are on now, like if you had, like what's a popular show nowadays? Like if you had 11, just turn at the screen and go like, I don't know, sometimes it's just Stranger Things.
Oh, yeah.
And then the episode ended. It wouldn't work. It would,
Yeah, like,
don't look at me
sure.
like that.
It's just like
you gave me this weird.
Or she doesn't
you gave
say
me this
anything.
weird look.
Right? They just, like,
Yeah.
look at the camera for a second.
Yeah.
And then
that's
look away.
even creepier.
Like,
Yeah.
they just, it's like
It
they're
makes you
looking at you.
It
and
makes you
you're
look
just
like you're, like, possessed,
"Eh."
yeah. I mean, you do get it in horror movies, and, like,
Oh,
Blumhouse
yeah.
movies especially, where, like, the last shot for it to go, like, nah! Or, like, whatever, and, like do, like,
The final
last
jump scare. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're making you focus on something else, and that's why
Right,
they do
right.
that.
They're just trying to startle you.
Yeah.
But it is startling. They did understand that does make you feel unnerved to have someone on the TV screen look at you. But that's why
Right.
we don't do it.
Right.
Or it's only supposed to be done for a specific effect.
Right.
So we come back from a commercial break, and I wrote down that it was kind of surprising that he doesn't go into the church. He hears the
Yeah.
church bells.
That
So,
was
like,
weird
again, like,
too.
everything else in the story, like when he hears something or he suspects people might be there,
he goes to it.
but he doesn't go in the church. And I could not, for the life of me, figure out if that was intentional on the show's part of some sort of commentary.
It
or
may
like
have been.
some sort of backstory that was there. Like, I
Right.
couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, we could try to analyze that, but
I mean,
there's
yeah,
there's
I mean,
so many different ways you could go with the fact that he didn't go into that church. One, maybe it's he is worried he is dead.
He's dead.
And if he goes
Yeah.
to the church, you
then
know,
he's like crossing over.
exactly.
Yeah. See, like, I got
So-
goosebumps just thinking about that.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, you get goosebumps thinking about things like that. But like, that could be one of the reasons that he doesn't go to the church.
That's
Like,
good too, because he looks at it and he walks away from it.
and it makes him nervous. It's kind of like
Yeah.
oh, I don't know. It's like calling me. I don't think I should go over there.
Right. And I doubt that it would be something where it's like anti-religion, because we'll get into episodes where Serling is
Religious.
he was born Jewish. He turned some sort, I can't remember what it was for his wife. Folks at home, let me know what it was. His wife was some form of Christianity, and he became it so that they could get married in the church. But he was he's not anti-religious. There's shows that are very pro-religion, and it's not like you get away with having like a against the church message in 1959 anyway. But I think your interpretation is probably right, Rachel, where it's like he thinks maybe he's dead, and like that,
Or, like, in
just
limbo.
confirm it. Yeah, which
Yeah.
like again, like that even makes it even. I mean, it's very human though, right?
Yeah.
If there's bad news, even if you're really curious and you're really unsettled and you're really nervous, if you think it might be bad, you avoid it still.
Yes.
So like he wants to know the answer, but if it's bad, he kind of wants to avoid
Like,
it.
well, let's say it's not that. Let's move over here and see if it's these things first.
let's go to this drugstore first.
Yeah, right.
I'm gonna get myself a soda. Can I get a soda with ice cream?
Yeah, he just keeps going.
He's very hungry.
Well-
He eats a lot in this episode.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm going to give this show credit. I mean, obviously I'm giving this show credit because we were talking about it and it's 60 years old. But this is a TV show that's 25 minutes long, and it's mostly one guy
Yep.
walking around, talking to himself occasionally.
Right.
And it keeps your interest the entire time.
It really does.
Now, I don't know if that just says something about us or people that like the show, but you couldn't do that now. They wouldn't let you do this now. I don't think. I mean,
don't
maybe there's
know.
episode of the new Twilight Zone or Black Mirror that do.
Yeah.
We'll have to see. But, because I haven't watched a lot of Black Mirror, because again, like, it just depresses me.
Yeah.
But
I'll have to go back to watching some of it.
I give the show a lot of credit, because it does really, like, make it, you know, it keeps your attention. It keeps you going. It keeps you wanting to know what's going on. So he goes into this drugstore, and he gets a sundae. He asks everybody if he wants a sundae, and he starts talking to himself in the mirror. and it's definitely a writer's device to get like some exposition out to talk to himself in the mirror. But it's fine.
Well, well, the thing is if he doesn't know who he is either, this is the first time he's seeing himself.
He's seeing himself. That's true. Yeah, because he does kind of say like, you look familiar, but I can't figure out I don't remember the name.
Right.
Like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I put in my notes here, I don't know, I'd get by. I don't know exactly what I was talking about, but I think eating the sundae by yourself in an empty drugstore in an empty world, that seemed like peaceful to me. I don't know. Folks at home, let me know. But I think,
I don't know. Is he weird? Is he weird to say that? I don't know, because I kind of feel the same way in a sense. But I also talk to myself all the time when I'm alone, so...
That episode of The Simpsons where Homer's in the theater by himself after the world ended, and we'll get to the theater in this in a minute too, which the theater that Homer's in is not from this, but it could be, because like they could have been combining Omega Man in this. Heaven. I want my theater to myself, but I just don't want to go to a 9:00 showing on like a Tuesday. So he basically tells the guy in the mirror himself that he quotes Ebenezer Scrooge. He quotes Christmas Carol because he's trying to convince himself that like he just ate something bad and like this is just a weird dream that he's having because he's having like a nightmare from eating something bad.
I don't remember him quoting it.
Yeah, he says something. I don't remember the line from Christmas Carol, but it's like, you're just a bad piece of cheese or like a undigested piece of meat or something like that.
Okay.
Which is the line from Christmas Carol.
I didn't realize that. Okay.
Isolation is such a theme on this show. It comes up again, and we'll talk about it again shortly on our journey a few times in these first handful of episodes. But it really does, like, again, I just thought, man, it really is like a COVID world.
Yes, a quarantine world, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe they're all in quarantine.
It could be. And, like they all had to be, like, grabbed and run and be in quarantine. Yep.
This would have been the nuclear panic. They could all be in quarantine. So he gets another hint of what could be going on because it's a drugstore, and a drugstore in the 50s had like a bar, and it had pharmaceuticals, and it had books and shit. It had a bunch of different stuff in it. And it has a bunch of books, and he starts spinning the racks on the books, and he spins one of the racks, and there's a bunch of copies of a book called The Last Man on Earth. Mm-hmm. And you can tell he gets more concerned because now he's thinking, oh shit,
am I the last
man on Earth? So he kind of runs out of the store.
Right.
So time passes. I think there's another commercial break. So now it's night. And he's just sitting in the park. He doesn't know what else to do. He's just playing like tic-tac-toe with himself. Mm-hmm. Which sounds like fun. And all the lights turn on. Because like it's that time of night.
Right.
So the lights in
like
in
automatic
the town turn on.
Lights, yeah.
And the theater lights turn on. Wait. Did you hear that? Okay, never mind. I don't know what that was. So the theater lights come on. There's a theater in the town, and he decides to go check it out because it's a little brighter and lighter. There's a movie called Battle Hymn playing. It stars Rock Hudson and Martha Hyer. I've heard of Rock Hudson before. I don't know if I've heard of Martha Hyer. I'm sure I have seen something with her in it. But the poster has a guy that's dressed like him, and he realizes he's an Air Force pilot. In fact, he runs into the theater going, Air Force?
Yeah.
I'm in the Air Force!
Yeah,
Hey, everybody!
Yeah, he wants to tell somebody that he figured something out.
Air Force. Air Force. I'm Air Force. Air Force. I'm in the Air Force. I'm in the Air Force. Hey, I'm in the Air Force. I'm in the Air Force! Hey, everybody, I'm in the Air Force!
But, of course, the theater is empty, and he doesn't quite know what it means that he's in the Air Force. Like, he's like, okay, Air Force, but what does that mean?
Right.
Like, what does it mean that I'm in the Air Force? And the theater empty, again, I know that's not where The Simpsons got this, but that's what I remembered. Or, like, there's other movies and stuff where they have, like, empty theaters for sure.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure is kind of a trope, but this is, that another unsettling thing. And while he's in the theater empty, so he remembers that being part of the Air Force means that there could have been a bomb.
Yep.
But he reckons that it wasn't a bomb because nothing's destroyed.
Sure.
So it wasn't a bomb. So like I think that's
or at
to
least
try
a
to
bomb
reassure
didn't
himself
go
that,
off. Yeah.
Right. But I think that's to try to reassure himself that he's not the last man on Earth. Like that. Like his first thought is, oh shit! Like a bomb went off. Maybe I delivered it.
Oh. Okay.
And like the plane crashed, and like now I don't know who I am.
Yeah.
Trademark that. I'll write that little side story. That's trademark Shelf Life. As he's thinking that, the movie starts, and you hear that like projection noise, that which is like
with
a
the
weird
film, the
old noise. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like all weird noise anyway, that we don't hear anymore, and it's like a film of like planes going off, which I was wondering like, is that another foreshadowing? And he runs to the projection booth.
Yep.
Because he's like, well, somebody has to be up there controlling it. The thing when it turned on, and he gets up there, and we get a POV shot of him trying to look in, which is really weird because it's like an old like camera looking in,
right?
And there's nothing there, which we can't really see because the light's in his face, but you get the idea that there's nobody in there,
right?
So he runs down, and you see him kind of running towards from left to right on the screen, and then suddenly he crashes into a mirror and falls, and that made me jump the first time I saw it.
Right, yep.
That was actually beautifully done. Like, that was it, because you're already kind of in a panic, and you don't think that something's like that's going to happen because of the fact it's a TV show from 1959. But the mirror breaks, and you're like, oh, it was a trick shot. Like, you were seeing him in the mirror run toward the mirror.
Right.
So, very, very well done. And then he leaves the theater, and now we get a bunch of Dutch angles. For those of you that do not know, a Dutch angle is when the camera is tilted like sideways, almost like a 45-degree angle. So you're like kind of on the sidewalk, kind of like going up, and it's supposed to make you feel unnerved and paranoid.
Yeah, and unbalanced.
Yes.
It sets you unbalanced.
That's probably what it is. Yeah, unbalanced. But he's just kind of like running through town. He hugs a light pole, and he starts pressing the cross button. That's like the button to like let you walk across the street. And he just keeps going like, help me, help me, help me, help me, help me, help me. And he just keeps saying that. And suddenly we cut to a group of generals, colonels, some sort of like military, Air Force military, who is watching him. And one guy tells him like, get him out of there, get him out of there, get him out of there. And it turns out he was in a box, being monitored. He broke a clock on the wall that was in the box, so that's like the egg timer that broke. So that must have been, in entering the subconscious. And he basically passes out. So the rest of the crew get him out of there.
Right. It's kind of like a pod, and then they have him like wired in and everything. It's very small. It's like a one-man seat. It's like a seat. It's like literally if you were like in a simulator game, and it's like you're inside of it.
Yeah, I guess it is kind of like a simulator game. Do you know what I thought what it reminded me of? So let me say this first. So he passes out. They start unhooking him. They're happy that they were able to compile all this data. And then they're like, let in the press. And I thought it was hilarious. Like, this is definitely something that The Simpsons have used. And I'm sure it's in other stuff from this era where like 20 people from the press just run into the room.
Oh my God, yes.
Like all these guys in suits are just like,
and they just start talking and they're like, yeah.
Yeah. So the press is walking, and they're walking and talking. They basically say like his commanding officer says he cracked. He was having some sort of delusions after a while.
Right.
And we get our message about like if you were confined to a 2-foot by 2-foot box, you'd get freaked out too. For 96 hours.
I was gonna say, yeah, it was more than 96 hours. Wasn't it like 96 days?
Oh yeah, it was like 2 weeks. It was 2 weeks.
Yeah. Oh, so he was only in there for 2 weeks. I thought it was way longer than that for some reason. Okay.
He made it 2 weeks. Like they were like happy that he was able to make it 2 weeks.
Right.
And what it reminds me of, and I don't know if they did this as an homage to this episode, because it's similar in theme, It's similar in theme and in execution. The story is different. And that is the episode of Recess, which we will do one day,
Yes.
called The Box.
Yes, I remember
Because
the
they've
box.
referred to this as a box.
Yes.
And in Recess, it's called the
box.
And the box in Recess it's a punishment device where it's like a little 2x2 foot square. I think they even say that. I don't remember the dimensions exactly. Folks at home, I'm sure you're going to correct me. But TJ has to go stand in a box and he's not allowed to leave it during recess. And he cracks. I mean, the line from that I mean, you and I still quote Rachel. TJ's good boy, good boy. TJ be a good boy. I mean, we'll do it one day, but like, do you think that was a homage to this?
It's got to be,
or like a common theme must be this.
it
idea
may
of,
be
like,
a common
isolation in a box.
theme,
Yeah.
but it could have taken stuff from this, because I bet there's other Recess episodes that do definitely take stuff.
Oh, there's definitely
from-
Recess episodes that do.
And now I
Twilight
have to go back and watch them all.
No, Recess is up there with some of the better stuff that took from higher level ideas.
Yes, very
we'll
clever,
say.
very clever.
So they get him out of there. I love that there's like 20 guys surrounding him. Nowadays we'd be like, let the man have a freaking breath. You're like surrounding him. You're not letting him like take a minute.
Right.
We learned that his name is Ferris, so Mike Ferris, which I mentioned before. And we get our overall second message, which is, and this is interesting, this is a pandemic message for all of you out there. Not necessarily for me, but for most, or many. We can feed them, you can provide entertainment to them, etc., but you can't simulate man's hunger for companionship.
Yep.
You see, we can feed the stomach with concentrates. We can supply microfilm for reading, recreation, even movies of a sort. We can pump oxygen in and waste material out. But there's one thing we can't simulate. That's a very basic need. Man's hunger for companionship. The barrier of loneliness. That's one thing we haven't licked yet.
Next time it won't be just a box and a hanger, will it?
No, Mike. Next time you'll really be alone.
The barrier for loneliness. So I said they're either trying to prepare him for a pandemic or a trip to the moon.
And I think it's
One or
I
the
think it's
other.
to space. I bet it's a trip to space.
You don't think it? No, it is a trip to space. I was making a joke.
No, I'm
couldn't tell
just
if
saying.
you were
No, I think it's a trip to space. No, I mean, hell, this could have been for like a pandemic test too. Like, okay, let's
Well, yeah, but he
let's
would have
put
been
him in the
watching,
box.
like-
You know, let's put him in the box and see how he does for a while, all by
But you gotta
himself.
put him in the box, give him a couple Blu-rays and a video game, and maybe
yeah.
Netflix, and see how he does.
You know, someone can deliver food to him every once in a
there
while.
were definitely not people that lasted those 2 weeks. There were some people that couldn't last a day because they were protesting after a day of it.
God, yeah.
I mean, it's been like 16 months, and I'm getting a little bit like, this is kind of sad that it's kind of... I mean, it's not sad that it's ending because it's horrible, but it is. I am kind of like, well, now I don't have an excuse to not do something. Like,
I don't know. I still feel kind of isolated.
but, well, have you cracked yet? Have you drawn have you put yourself in like a submarine-like box to try to prepare yourself to go to the moon?
I mean, no.
Kind of.
I mean, I guess.
So he kind of says when he's done, he's like, I'll be up there someday, like talking to the moon as they like,
Right.
pull him away. And we get our final narration, which is about isolation and like the empty void of space and like how that's pretty creepy too.
Oh my god. Space itself would creep me out, and so does the ocean. So, like, the vastness of the ocean creeps me out a little bit. And like how deep
And
it
that's
is,
only,
and like not
yeah.
being able to see anything. And it's the same thing with space. Space is empty. It's silent. You know, you don't know what's there or what's coming. I mean, both of those
Well, and
things are
at-
terrifying.
And at this time, they didn't really know what they were in store for, or how it would feel, or if people would be okay by themselves
Right.
in space. So like it is pulling at that like that feeling at the time where like we wanted to conquer space.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the great unknown.
Yeah. It's the final frontier.
That's the end of Where Is Everybody, the pilot episode of The Twilight Zone. Rachel, we have come to that part of the show, as we will at the end of each episode, where I'll ask you, does Where Is Everybody have shelf life?
I think this one has shelf life, definitely, especially with you like tying in the things happening now.
Yeah.
With what they were going for then, you can put different parallels to it, and I like that about it. Isolation, I feel like, is something that actually definitely has shelf life, because it's always there. It's always like a psychological thing, and I think this really hit it right on the head with how it would feel.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree. I think this one has shelf life. I think it's a super solid episode. It's got a really good tone. I think it is one of the better, probably unsung episodes of Twilight
Yes.
Zone. I think people remember this one, but I don't think people think of it as like a classic.
Right.
But I think it's really good.
No, there's like corny parts to it, or like little like weird things, but at the same time, it's kind of like, well, that's fine. The overarching,
kind of the time.
Yeah, the overarching pieces to it definitely are there.
I mean, and one of the other themes that could even be like of today is because it is talking about isolation. It could be talking about prisoners
Yes.
or POWs like being put into isolation, which that's another, it's still a modern topic.
Exactly.
So it does have a lot of discussion points and things that can be talked through as you go through. And on top of that, I think the cinematography and the acting is good and does set a really good tone. So yeah, I will say, I think we're both in agreement. Where Is Everybody does have shelf life. If you haven't seen it, go check this one out. It is a good episode of Twilight Zone.
Yep.
But we will continue to delve deeper into the Twilight Zone when we come back from our fake sponsor. We have one for the angels.
Here's an item we forgot. You see this? It holds a promise for anyone who smokes. It's Oasis. And as its name implies, it promises you the most refreshing, the softest taste of all. Try Oasis. I think you'll like it.
And we're back! Hope you enjoyed that word from our 1959 sponsor. We continue our
I don't
journey
actually
into...
recommend using whatever our sponsor was sorry to sell, but that's fine.
I mean, coincidentally, neither would Rod Serling. I was telling you off air about that. There's an interview on YouTube. If you can go, like, if you just type in like Rod Serling interview with Mike Wallace, it's hilarious because it's his interview, which I've gotten some of the information that we talked about in part one, where he talks about how he hates censors and stuff like that. And you can tell, I'm surprised he's so forthcoming, because he's talking about how much he hated writing snake oil salesman crap for the radio and stuff like that. And it's just like, wow, he's really but I think that speaks to the fact that at that point, one, he didn't care because he thought that he was kind of a made man, and two, that he was a radical for the time, which comes through in some of these episodes.
It does sound like he is kind of a radical, but it is funny that he also just didn't want to be like that salesman, which, in this second episode of the Twilight series, we do have a salesman.
Wow. What that is, now that is what you call a segue.
That's right, people. Professionals.
Yes. We are a professional amateur podcast. So let's talk about this. This is One for the Angels from October 9th, 1959, written by Rod Serling, directed by Robert Parrish. I've never heard of anything that he's directed. He has directed a few of these Twilight Zone episodes, so we'll get to a couple of different ones, but he's got some different director and actor credits, but I'm not aware of any of them, so maybe we'll stumble upon some more stuff directed by Robert Parrish. But Rachel, you want to give the elevator synopsis of what we're going into in the Twilight Zone here with One for the Angels?
What's an elevator synopsis?
Like, you know, like a 30-second, what's it about?
Okay, I just I don't think I've ever heard it called that before. Interesting. So like I was saying...
Well, actually, the term is elevator pitch.
Oh, it's called an elevator pitch. Interesting, considering this entire episode revolves around a pitchman, which is pretty much just like a traveling salesman. If you heard of that one, they try to sell you these weird odds and ends out of like their briefcase type of thing.
He's a fucking peddler.
Yes, they're
He's
a peddler.
Nowadays, you tell him to get the hell away from you.
Yeah, like no solicitors. But he sells all of his stuff like out on the sidewalks and everything like that. And one day he gets talked to by the supposed angel of death, and it kind of revolves around his time to die, and actually being given a chance to like know when it's coming.
Yeah, it's a story about trying to cheat death in a very one act stage play type of way.
Yes.
Let's get into it then. Same intro on this episode as Where Is Everybody? We're entering the fifth dimension, or there is a fifth dimension, and we call it the Twilight Zone. So same idea. But there's opening narration on this one. It actually opens up with the first shot is a toy robot to, I guess, let you know, like, we'll get to sci-fi one day. But then there's also a shot of this eyeball, which we didn't talk about, but it's a very, very similar shot to the first episode where he sees there's an optometrist office or something.
Yes.
That the guy like backs up into, and there's this big eye looking at him. So he's thinking somebody's watching him.
Right.
So like, I thought it was interesting that there was like an eyeball here. It's one of those little things where I feel, oh, were they doing little, I don't know even if it was called an Easter egg back then, but is it kind of Easter eggs to tell you all these stories are
somewhat connected?
We're floating through the different universes.
I mean, it is the Twilight Zone. They are all connected.
Right.
But I would like it if they did add little Easter eggs into each episode that, you know, brought them kind of together, and where all of a sudden you're like, oh, I remember, like, that was in that episode, or like, oh, that same person or that name, you know, things like that is always fun for me. So that would be kind of fun if it did actually do that. Yes, I agree.
Right. And not that they would have even been thinking of that in the 50s, because it's not like they could have predicted VHS, much less, you know, streaming services. So maybe they just happen to have that prop on hand. But I like the idea that it's all these multiverses are being connected by these little symbols. Mm-hmm. And all of those little symbols kind of connect the Twilight Zone together. As Rachel said, there's some opening narration that tells us about Lou Bookman, our main character. He's selling toys on the street today or something like that. The score is a lot lighter toned because it's telling us that this is a bit of a lighter episode than the previous one, which was more dreary. And it tells us about Lou Bookman, who is he's a fixture of the summer. He's a peddler. He's on the street. He's a pitchman, is what they call him.
Right.
And he's commonplace on the sidewalk. The best part is, I wrote down that it's just an old man selling shit on the street.
I mean, it kind of is. It is. And the kids love him because he's got all these, like, trinkets and toys and...
Right, he's fun.
Right.
But he's going to be stalked this afternoon, a hot July afternoon. So I guess appropriate that we're doing this. A hot July afternoon... He is stalked by Mr. Death. Dun-dun-dun! And there's this guy in a suit. He's standing off to the side with like a little notepad. Mm-hmm. And he stares straight into the camera.
Yeah, they break the fourth wall with this one.
So 2 things about the actors in this episode. Lou Bookman, who will be our main character, the old man peddler. So he's been in a lot of things. He's actually considered to be... He is... a Disney legend. He has been given the symbol or the honor of being a Disney legend. He was apparently beloved by Walt Disney. He was the Mad Hatter in the Alice in Wonderland cartoon in 1951. He was in Requiem for a Heavyweight, which is one of Rod Serling's Emmy Award-winning episodes of television, and then he was in The Diary of Anne Frank in the 50s. He was in Babes in Toyland as the toy maker, and in Mary Poppins as Uncle Albert. Are you
maybe I know him from Poppins.
Yeah.
That might be what it is. I kept, for some reason, in my head, I look at him and go, he looked just like the freaking Cowardly Lion.
I should know who the Cowardly Lion is off the top of my head.
I feel like I should too, and now it's gonna bug me.
Bert Lahr was the Cowardly Lion. But yeah, so he is in Edwin in a lot of Disney movies when he was an older man. And then I keep wanting to call him Dr. Death. Mr. Death. Did you recognize him, Rachel? You've seen him in a thing or two before.
I don't.
He is Murray Hamilton.
Yeah.
And his probably the most iconic role he has is he was the mayor in Jaws.
Oh my god. He looks so different in Jaws, though.
Well, it's nearly 20 years later.
Well, that's what I mean, because it's just like, oh, okay, yeah, he's a lot older in Jaws.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't recognize him either, but in looking up who the actors were, I was like, oh, he is the mayor in Jaws. Like, you see it once you think about it, but
right.
You don't think about it, because he just looks like 1950s guy.
Yeah, he really does look like
that.
just 1950 guy. I mean, so does Rod Sterling. Or Sterling. Rod Sterling.
Rod Serling. Yeah, Rod Serling does look like 1950s guy, too. Right down to the Pall Mall cigarette and the... right. And all the teeth are like...
Yep, that's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
That's great.
So, what happens here is we get the Mr. Death is stalking him, goes to a commercial, and we come back to a commercial. Lou's done for the day, and he's going up to his apartment, and all the kids in the neighborhood, they all like Lou, because like you said, he just gives away toys. Now, he only gives away 2 toys. Do you think that he, like, rotates it? Because he gives one to Maggie, and he gives one to some other boy. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't give one... There's, like, 8 kids there.
Right. No,
So
I have a
like,
feeling he gives them away all the time. And so he gives, like, okay, I'm going to pick 2 kids this week, you know, and then he just kind of goes, okay, this one, and then that one and that one gets next week or whatever, the next couple days.
Yeah,
but
it's got to be.
It only makes sense. Because they all love him.
Otherwise, they do. They like Lou. Now, you couldn't make this today because you'd be
God,
like,
no, he's a
Lou
pedophile.
Right.
Instant pedophile
Who's trying to
profile
bribe
right
these
there.
kids?
He would have a weird van too that he would be selling stuff out of.
But the... Hey, kids, you want a toy robot? It's in the back of my van.
Horrible.
You want one of these little helicopters? It's in my van. Why don't you come over there and get it?
I got some candy.
But I think that I
feel like this guy is like on the up and up.
Oh no, he's on the up and up.
Oh, okay.
And he'd be on the up and up now too. Like
no, I know.
There's probably areas in the world where you still have the local old man that's friendly to everybody, knows him.
Yeah.
They wave to him.
No, you're right.
You know, he's still, people. Maybe he comes and he watches the kids play baseball. I don't know. Like that still has to exist somewhere where he's not, oh yeah.
Ew, stop.
Ew.
Ew. Don't even start with that.
Lou does not sound like
I know
that,
what you
by the
mean,
way.
though. Oh no, Lou to me sounds like the Cowardly Lion, but
Well, he should sound like the Mad Hatter to you.
That's
the Mad Hatter.
No, yeah, you're right. Yeah, that too. But like they both have like that lisp and they kind of like talk like that to me, so
yeah, it's similar. I put the kids are doing a lot of, hey, what are you up to, Mr. Lou? You got us some toys for us today? We'll get to it. I actually don't think that Maggie's that bad of a kid actor for 1959.
She was fine.
But the kids are doing like, oh, gee gosh, Mr. Lou.
Oh, golly
Thanks
gee
for all the
willikers.
toys. And it makes me wonder again, did people really act like that? Or was that what the culture thought everyone acted like, I don't know. If you were to take something from 2021 and show it to people 60 years from now, would it look like what we were really doing? Or would they, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, how
but
exaggerated
verbiage
is...
and everything does change a lot. And I think we do have very odd words nowadays that people use that I still don't even understand the definition of.
That's because you're old.
I know. But I think the same thing happened back then. They had words and stuff like, oh, golly. Like, you know, people even still say that now. And sometimes it is like, oh, they actually do say the word golly for what it means, or they're making fun of it. I think that was, like, a term that was used back then. And I do think that, you know what? They probably did act like that. I bet they did.
In some ways. I mean, I always will point to...
It might be over-exaggerated, but...
We'll do it one day. One of my favorite 1950s B movies, I Was a Teenage Werewolf.
Oh, yeah.
The point where the main character says to a cop, it just bugs me. People just bug me. And the cop goes, oh yeah, sure, use your jive talk. Because he says it bugs him.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, you know.
Right.
You know, you just gotta yeet it. Isn't that a thing now? You yeet things?
Right, I'm older than
that's
you.
Actually probably an old term now, because I think it's more of like
folks at home, I don't know if Rachel just said a slur. I don't know what.
I can't even think of another word. It's the only one that came to mind.
I know, I can't think of any either, because I don't use them that much.
I don't use them ever.
Hello, fellow kids.
Yes,
look,
children.
We just lost the whole under 20 demographic.
No, they love it. They're just making fun of us now. It's great. They're laughing. Laugh away.
That's fine.
You're gonna be us one day,
you bastards. If we ever have to come out with a G-rated version of Shelf Life because we want to get more ad revenue or whatever, I'll start saying Rachel will replace all of my swearing with golly and G Willikers.
Oh yeah, and it'll sound like Millhouse.
Well, yes, it'll definitely.
What is the one? What does it sound like? The radioactive
Jiminy
man?
Jillikers.
Jiminy Jillikers. Jiminy Jillikers.
Is Fall Out Boys. Yeah.
Yes, it's exactly what I was going for. Jiminy Jillikers. Thank you.
So anyway, Lou goes up to his... I thought hilariously later he calls it his room. He refers to it as like, I've been living in this room for 25 years! And I was like, that's fun that you live in a room.
Well, it probably is just like a studio apartment.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have like a family or anything. He's just this local pitchman. And the 50... No, don't let anybody fool you. The 50s sucked. Nobody had shit. They all could get free education in a house and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, they really weren't. Don't let them fool you. So...
No, I would imagine it's kind of a tough time.
He's unpacking his stuff, and he notes that there's a man sitting in a chair across the way in the room. And I like the fact that since it is the 50s, he just asks him if he wants to buy something.
I mean, you're in my house, but that's fine. Do you want to buy something? Is that why you're here? Is that why you broke into my apartment?
It's not total shock like it would be for me. It's not, holy hell, I'm calling the police.
I would have left. The second I saw somebody into my apartment, I would have been like, I'm out. I'm going to call the police.
Lou's just like, oh, well, would you like to buy something? I'm doing more the Mad Hatter than what he actually sounds like.
Who do you
in this? Because he sounds pretty normal in this.
You sound like the character from Wreck-It Ralph.
Yeah, that's what
King Candy.
That character is doing a parody of
the Mad Hatter. Yeah.
So he's doing a parody of that voice.
Okay.
Yeah. There you go, folks. Pure accuracy on my impression of Edwin's, Lou Bookman's, Mad Hatter, King Candy.
I was able to make a connection to Wreck-It Ralph's King Candy. King Candy.
So if we can get folks at home, if you can do like a 6, separation, that game. If you can do 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon from, I will give you either King Candy or Ed Wynn. I'd rather have you do it from Ed Wynn to Kevin Bacon, just to see what we can come up with.
That sounds exciting.
Just tweet at the. I'm sure Rachel will set up some sort of or send it into the mailbag. So anyway, he asks this guy if he wants to buy anything, and Death, I'm just going to refer to him as Death, he starts to kind of just like, no, Mr. Buckman, I actually have some, things to run down with you. So he starts running down Lou's life. I wrote down, oh, Jesus, he was born in 1890. And that's okay for this timeline. That makes sense. An old man was born in 1890, and I was like, "Good Lord!" Because you have to go back,
it's kind of
into perspective.
It's kind of weird, yeah.
And Ed Wynn was actually born in 1886, so that still is in there. It's like, oh my God. So he goes through kind of like his life story, and the guy's kind of like, "How do you do all that?" And then Death informs him that he is going to make his departure at midnight tonight.
Well, here's the stupid thing though. This Death character just expects him to know what that means. Well, you have your departure at midnight. It's like, what are you talking about? I don't even know who you are.
Death
I don't know why you're in my apartment, and you're saying that there's some sort of departure at midnight. Thanks.
Well, Death seems to be a little. I mean, I'm sure it's very tiring
obtuse
job, and I'm sure that he is sick of having to explain this to every person. But he is kind of.
You don't think Death enjoys his job?
I mean, I don't know. Doesn't he seem a little like?
Do you think there's multiple angels though of Death, or do you think it's just one angel of Death and he answers to the hierarchy of angels?
Well, if it's like Saint Peter. So do you think his direct supervisor is Saint Peter, or do you think he's got like there is a Death and he's just one of the deaths?
Well, I'm thinking that there's a Death, right? The angel of Death, and then he has his little angel minions that he sends out to do,
So this is just some like guy?
No. He's an angel of death. He is a angel of death.
Okay, he's not the guy.
I don't know if he's. I don't think he's the death.
So he's just another salesman too. He should have a little bit of sympathy.
Went from one salesman to the other.
Yeah, so like have a little bit of sympathy. I don't know. It could also be a Santa Claus situation where he's everywhere at the same time.
Right. And he's just giving you a face that you feel more comfortable with.
Which I could understand that this guy. So now he's a little put off because Bookman's giving him a hard time. But to your point, like, why would anybody believe that he's Death right away?
Right. I mean, you didn't even explain it. He didn't even say who he is. He just said, "Okay, I know all this stuff about you, and your departure is at midnight." All right, cool. Where am I going? Are we going to the Bahamas to Fiji or whatever? I don't know.
He's going to the Zandu Nation. Or no, not Zandu, Zulu. Sandu. But before he can question what that means, what his departure means, Maggie walks in and she says that one of the toys is broken. It's like a little toy robot. Mm-hmm. She was just playing with it wrong, I guess. But he fixes it for her, and he's like, "Oh, this guy over here is asking me a bunch of questions." And Maggie's like, "What guy, Lou?
Is this a game?" Well, hello, sir. Game. And then she just
I thought it was fine.
She's
like
adorable.
For what she's being asked. Like
right.
I thought it was all right.
Oh, are we playing a game?
Yeah, because it's like, oh, Lou.
It's just so you.
Which I guess there's also a standing after dinner. He lets them play with his unsold merchandise or something.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you gathered from that too? Because he was like, "I'll see you all after dinner."
Yeah, it sounded like they get to like play with all the toys after food. Maybe that's why he gave them. Here's just a couple that you guys get to play with, but then you get the rest of them after dinner.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was. I don't know, but yeah, it seems like he's planning to go back out there. Or back outside, or like give the kids something else to do, or he just he clearly cares for the children that I guess live in the neighborhood or live in the same building,
right?
As he does. So Maggie leaves, and Death is basically like, she can't see me, Mr. Bookman. The only people that can see me are the people that are coming with me.
Right.
Or that I'm here to take with
Right.
me. It's at this point, and I am about to say something that this may cause you to observe too much into the episode. It's one of those things like where once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it.
Okay.
So I'm about to say it, so skip ahead like a minute and a half if you don't want to hear this part. And then when I looked it up, I realized why I was seeing it, and I'll say that too. Ed Wynn, as Lou Bookman, is shaking a lot. Did you notice that?
I thought he was just nervous.
So I wondered that too.
Or
I
does
was
he
like,
have-
oh, is this a character trait, like a character choice, an actor's choice? Because it would make sense. Like, but he's, shaking an awful lot. So I found that Brad Serling actually went to an Edwin Memorial from the Parkinson's, American
Oh my
Parkinson's.
God, really?
So I think I couldn't, it wasn't in Edwin's wiki, but because I was able to find, they did something at like a Parkinson's research in his honor after he died in 1966, that I think he has Parkinson's.
Well, that would make sense, but like the way he moves
means that
around
he's
and the way he was using it for the character, I thought it was just a part of the character as well.
Which makes you kind of root for him more.
Yes.
Like knowing that. Because even if you want to make it so that the character had that or the real life man had it, one, he's acting his ass off. And
Yeah,
he would
he's
be
doing a good
acting his
job.
ass off until he died with Parkinson's in the 60s when there probably wasn't as much knowledge about how
Right.
to treat that condition. There's not a lot of knowledge as we record this about how to treat that condition. Once I noticed, I was like, is he doing that on purpose? Because obviously now, because we can see it in Blu-ray quality, you pick up on that little thing. But yeah, an interesting little note, but I did find that out about him. So keep that in your back pocket if you go back and watch the episode. So he's trying to go back and after Maggie leaves as to like, what's going on here? And Death has moved his place. He's now sitting in a new place in the room. And that's when he tells him that only those that accompany him can see him. And then that's when it clicks for Lou. Because he's like, well, if Maggie didn't see you, then he realizes he's supposed to die. And he gets a little peeved, as you would when you find out that you're supposed to die. And he basically starts arguing with him. And I want to call someone this one day. I want to call someone a devious sort. Because he's like, now listen, I find you to be a devious sort. And you're dishonest. It's such a quaint way of telling someone to go fuck off.
Pretty much, yeah. It really is.
But Death proves to him that he is Death. Death gets a little annoyed. He's like, I can't believe I have to do this every time. Like, this is stupid. So
Well, then maybe talk to them the first time you come in. Jeez. Your departure's at midnight. I can't get over that. It's like, okay.
He is a busy angel, Rachel. He has shit to do.
Yeah, we'll explain it better than the first time around.
He might have been going into the pitch.
Oh, that's true. Maybe he was starting his
salesman.
pitch, yeah.
Yeah, he was starting his pitch, and frickin' Maggie interrupted him with
That's
a stupid
true.
little robot. That's why he picked her.
Don't call her stupid. Maggie's cute.
So, Death touches a flower, and the flower wilts to prove that he is Death. Great special effect on this flower.
Oh, it's beautiful.
It's clearly a stagehand behind the thing moving the flower forward. I thought it was really funny.
They probably had it on a string.
Oh yeah, that's probably what it was. It was on a string. So Lou fights back. He's like, I'm healthy. I don't want to go. And I'm healthy. So he's like, there's no reason for me to go. And Death doesn't care. Death's like, you're on my list. You're going. That's the way this works. There is no bargaining here.
Right.
But he does tell him that there are conditions for appeal, which I wonder if this applies to real life too. We'll never know until we're about to die, which probably means that it would, folks at home, if you're able to write us into the mailbag and you're like, oh, by the way, you can make an appeal.
I won.
I got an appeal. Basically, the appeal is your family would struggle if you were to be gone. And he's like, I don't have a family. And then you have to be on the verge of discovery of something. So it's like if you're a scientist or an inventor or something, and you're on the verge of something that's going to be like monumental or change the world. But he just fiddles around with all of his toys and crap, so that doesn't count either.
Right.
And then the third one is unfinished business of a major nature. And I'm thinking here, like, Lou starts trying to come up with, like, crap. And I'm thinking, like, dude, just go big. Maybe he'll take it.
Right.
You've got to think of something. You're a salesman. You can think of something good.
Right.
You BS all the time. He comes up with a pretty bad one where now I think he's thinking it's good because he's like, I'm never going to leave the country. I need to go see a Zulu war dance. So I need to get over to that Zulu country. And I'm assuming he's talking about somewhere
like
in
he
Africa.
really wants to travel, yeah.
Yeah. But so he's like, you're going to have to give me a few years to get over there. But Death's like, no, come on, man. That's stupid. So that's what Lou thinks he can come up with. Lou does eventually, though, like, because he's trying to come up with another one, he tells him the truth. And he sort of tells him the truth, I think. We'll talk about
No,
this.
I bet he does tell the truth here, but go on.
So he tells him that he wants to make a big pitch. A one for the angels. And I was thinking, oh my god, is this going to break into, like, one of those MST3K shorts about selling bread? Like it just felt one of those where it's going to break into, like, this, you see, I'm going to make Lou Bookman the best chicken salesman in the country. That's what it felt like it could turn into. But he tells him that he wants to make a big pitch for the angels.
Right.
That's what he wants. And Death is kind of like, that's not good enough. Lou gets a little disappointed, and Death's like, all right, does it really mean that much to you? And he says yes, and Death decides to give him the extension. He kind of sells Death here a little bit.
Well, there is one thing.
What is it, Mr. Bookman?
Well, between you and me, I never made a truly big pitch. I mean a big pitch. A pitch big enough for the skies to open up. You know, a pitch for the angels. Of course, that wouldn't mean very much to you, but it would mean a great deal to me. It would mean that for one moment in my whole life, I would have done something successful. It would mean that maybe the children would be very proud of me.
The children?
Yes. I've always had quite a fondness for children, you know.
Yes, that's all here in the record. Problem here, Mr. Bookman, is that you'd require a delay until...
Until I make a pitch. You know, the kind of pitch I was talking to you about there.
One for the angels, you mean?
That's right. One for the angels.
Now, I don't think he really wants to make a big pitch. I think what he really wants is to make the children proud of him. And he says that when he's telling him he wants to make a big pitch. He's like, something the children will be proud of.
Right.
And I think that's all he
that is the truthful part of it. And I think he sees the children as his angels.
Oh.
Yeah, let's get a little corny here, but yeah.
This
so
is a very corny episode.
I think you are right that it isn't one for, like, the angels in the sky. It's more like his children that he gets to be around and make happy. He wants to do it for them. Is that what you're saying?
I think all he can think of, because he's a very simple man, all he is a pitchman, is all he can think of is leaving a lasting mark so that the children would be proud of him, and that's
remember
making
him.
a big sale or, like, doing something that they'd remember him by. That's kind of all he wants. And so I think that you're taking the metaphor. I mean, we don't know. That could be the metaphor Rod Serling's going for, or the parable, or whatever. I think it probably is. It's a mess. I think that is the message at the end of the day. I was thinking then, is Death setting him up?
Mm-hmm.
Does Death kind of put all this in motion so that, spoiler alert, at the end of this, he sacrifices himself, and in that way, the children are proud of him because he sacrifices himself for them.
Well, no, I had that thought too. I kind of was like, wait, is he letting him do this? And we'll see what happens later.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if it's a very fated type of thing. Like, no, this was going to happen. This is the way it was supposed to happen. You know, like, this is the way I was going to take you with me. Is together.
And when we get to the end too, like, there's a couple of scenes where I think Death is playing it up. So we'll talk about that in a second. Because what happens is Death gives him an extension, and he's like, great, well, it'll be a few years before I make this pitch, we'll come back in a few years, maybe I'll do some more selling. And he basically shoves Death out the door, and Death's like, Mr. Bookman, are you tricking me? Are you trying to trick me? And he's like, well, goodbye, and slams the door in his face.
And then he's like, I'm never going to sell something ever again.
Yeah, I'm never selling anything, and I was tricking you, you bastard! Because Death realizes he's being taken advantage of. Or at least he says he's being taken advantage of. But again, if you read it my way, he's kind of playing along.
Right.
And of course, Death comes right back into the room because he's Death. He's like, Mr. Bookman, stop this.
Well, it kind of would make sense that if he's going to really reveal himself like this and say, you're dying at this time, it's kind of like you get one final wish. It feels that way. Because it's like, why else would you reveal yourself? Why else would you, give me my time limit? Like, okay, well, now I know I'm going to die at midnight. What am I supposed to do till then? Like, okay.
Something real get that final meal ready.
Like, are we just midnight. Recording a podcast? Okay, I guess we're recording a podcast, and then I'll just drop dead at the end of it.
Stay tuned. I don't know if I would be recording a podcast, but to your point, I don't know what I would do if you're only given till midnight. But folks at home, let us know what you would do. If you were put in Lou Bookman's position. So he gets spooked because Death is back in the room. So he runs out the room, and Death is basically telling him, Mr. Bookman, you have made things complex now. You've complicated stuff because now you wanted your appeal. I gave you your appeal, and now you're tricking me, or you're trying to take advantage of that. Like, now this is going to get complicated. And he's basically pissed off. He pissed off Death, which is something you probably should not do.
No, that makes sense.
And Death in this is a Don Draper type character. He's got the slick back hair. He's eventually the mayor from Jaws, who is a seedy character.
Don Draper, Mad Men, salesman.
Yeah, it's all about sales.
That's all about marketing and selling. So, yes. Oh, it all connects now.
And salesmen are the work of the devil. Like...
He tells him, oh my god. He tells him he's a good guy, though.
Yeah, he tells him.
Oh yeah, we're going upstairs. Actually, we're taking the elevator down. Like, what?
But he tells him that because he won't come, he's going to need an alternative. He needs to find someone else to take his place, basically. And as he's telling him that he needs an alternative, you hear a sound effect of a car crash.
Yep.
And what we find out is that a car has hit Maggie.
Yep.
So Lou runs out, and he's like, Maggie, what happened? What happened? So there's like a crowd gathered around. And this schmuck that hit her with the car was like, oh, mister, you gotta believe me. I swear, I couldn't stop. She jumped right out into the street, I swear. It was like, all right, asshole.
Yeah,
like,
really.
You're going to jail.
Yeah, shut the hell up. Get out of here.
Although, again, when Lorraine's dad hits Marty with the car.
Oh, my God.
So maybe kids were just
again.
So maybe in the 50s, people were just getting hit with cars all the time.
This is where they taught you to look both ways when you cross the street, because I bet kids were just running in the streets, God, like... willy-nilly. Willy-nilly.
Yes, willy-nilly, and golly gee, she gets it with the car. But I don't know, I want to know what happened to this guy. Because if this guy, did this guy get set up?
Now he's going to feel guilty for the rest of his life, go to jail now, because he hit a little girl with his car.
Well,
maybe.
There's one of two things. One is, she wasn't he could have stopped and he was the equivalent of texting in the 50s, so I don't know, he was reading the newspaper while he was driving. Or 2, he really couldn't stop, and she was kind of pushed into the street by death.
Oh, yes, the push of death.
Either way, this guy's getting the chair. He hit some little white girl with a car.
Little blonde-headed white girl, yeah.
Now,
In the 50s.
maybe he has money, but by his vernacular, this is just some Joe Schmo
No, he
schmuck.
could have been a taxi driver. We don't know.
I think he's a taxi driver. He's losing his license. He's becoming destitute. This man's losing everything to teach Lou Bookman a valuable lesson.
Or that man might have, maybe that was his destiny anyways. He was supposed to.
Well, I guess that's possible. Kind of sucks for that guy, though.
It was going to happen either way.
Maybe a different angel is going to come to that guy.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, then his life is going to become It's very
cyclical.
Final Destination. It's all very Final Destination. If it's not...
I mean,
like,
in Final Destination, they do get really fancy. So, I mean, this is kind of fancy in the way of getting his kill.
Getting his kill. If I kind of want someone to recut Final Destination with Marie Hamilton as Mr. Death standing in the background, like leaning against the wall, like as all the deaths happen, and he's just like jotting notes down in a notebook, like, all right, took care of that one. Oh yeah, that one was pretty elaborate.
You know what
but
would be
it
fun?
made it
Let's
look
do
like
it
he
this
choked
way.
himself. Oh yeah.
Oh,
He had
we
to
could
climb out.
We could have the fire start, and then the knives fall and just stab her right in the stomach.
I've never done a roller coaster demise.
Oh, that could be really
I wanna
interesting.
try that one. It's fun. That is a lot of fun.
A nail gun, always use one of those.
Those are on the list, right?
Yes.
Because those deaths are hilariously elaborate.
Yeah, I would
I
put
wonder
him
what
on the
Rod
list.
Serling would. Don't you kind of wonder what Rod Serling would have thought of Final Destination?
He would have thought it was shit. I
Do
don't
you
think
think?
that man really liked anything. It sounds like he's just a bit of a cynic. So I bet he wasn't.
He's definitely a
I don't
cynic.
think he would be into it.
Well, since you
Or
say that,
maybe
since you
they
bring
are
that
in the
up,
Twilight Zone.
they're kind of Twilight Zone-y.
It is very
for
Twilight
one.
Zone-y, yeah.
And 2, kind of the times. I will tell you, Rachel. I sent you the link, I'll recommend it to everyone to go listen to his interview with Mike Wallace about why he's making the Twilight Zone, because part of it is another writer said, I think, toward Serling about making the Twilight Zone because he wanted to do science fiction and fantasy. And I know we're going off on a tangent, but we can talk about it here. He wanted to make the Twilight Zone, and this author said, you can't be artistic while also trying to be commercial. Now, in 2021, there's a lot of backlash about commercialism, about, superheroes. And about how maybe they're not the best form of art, and some of them aren't, and some of them can be. And his response is still relevant today, where it's like, you can be artistic and be commercial. So I don't know, maybe he would be like, well, these are dumb. Like, it's not art, it's not really telling you anything, but it's fun. Like, I don't know. Like, he is a cynic, though. He's definitely a cynic.
But I do think that, he also likes the Twilight Zone messages, and the Final Destination doesn't really have a message.
Final Destination has no message.
It doesn't have a
There's
message.
no message in that.
It's the grand design, I believe, is what they always say.
I still want Marie Hamilton standing in the background.
Oh yeah, that would be
of
amazing.
those scenes,
Absolutely.
Shaking his head in displeasure at them getting off the plane,
Or getting away with it, being like, okay,
gonna have to put overtime
and he just
in.
flips a page and starts writing more notes. Like, great, now I have to write all their names down. I had them all in one bunch. It wasn't a big deal.
My boss isn't gonna like this. The one thing that Lou does when he's on the street is he takes his jacket off and he puts like a pillow behind Maggie's head. And I was thinking, maybe don't touch her.
Yeah, don't touch her.
Maybe don't lift her
I mean,
head.
nowadays you wouldn't do that. Absolutely not. Don't do that.
Because you're gonna...
Probably has whiplash,
might...
neck might be broken. Don't touch
Yeah,
it.
she's... So in a way, maybe Lou killed Maggie. I'm just saying. But what we learn is, because Maggie kind of like comes.
Oh, and then
to
by the
she's
way,
like,
that's just the end of the
"Lou."
show, and that Death takes
that's
the
the end of
girl,
the-
and
yeah.
That's the end.
Death takes the girl. Lou learns a very valuable lesson about not trying to trick Death. End of the episode.
Scene.
No.
Of course not.
End scene. No, it's not that cynical. That's nihilistic.
It's depressing.
But Maggie kind of goes like, "Who's that, Lou?" And he's like, "Who?" And she points to Death, and she's like, "That guy." So now Lou realizes that because she can see him, that she's been the one to take his place.
Right. She is now on his list. Not our list. His list.
So he walks back up to Death. I got it. I'm sorry. That took me a second. I'm sorry. Everyone laughed that's listening. It took me a second because I was like, not our list. Oh, our list. Add Maggie to the list.
Just Maggie.
Maggie, episode 2, The Twilight Zone, 1959. Did Maggie ever become something?
I was about to look, actually. Donna Dillaway. That was her name. It looks like everything stopped in 1978. She's got 16 credits. She was in Leave It to Beaver.
Oh, there you go. A little here and there.
Yeah.
Pretty
My
much
Three
kid actor
Sons.
then. Yeah, so some TV stuff.
Right.
So Lou walks back up to Death and he's like, "Look, forget the deal. I'm ready. I'll go." And which is a total, once he kind of realizes the ramifications of his actions, he's like, "Okay, fine. If it needs to be somebody, it's going to be me. Don't take her."
Right. I mean, if Death would have
which shows
explained
you-
that, then he would have just known, but whatever.
Oh yeah, but he's got to learn a lesson.
I know.
And it shows you how noble he is.
Right.
Too. You root for this guy.
You
right?
do, yes.
But Death tells him it's too late. He's already kind of put the order in, like he's kind of like changed the the purchase order here. So now they're getting Maggie instead. What we learn is he says, "I'm still scheduled to leave with her at midnight tonight." He's waiting, and the doctor comes out and says like, "It's kind of too soon to tell." So he decides to not let Death come get Maggie. Bookman does.
Right.
Like, he's like, "I'm not going to let him get in there."
Right. He has made this giant decision.
It's at this point where I wrote in my notes, I'm interested to know if you can find the stages of grief in this episode. I don't know when those stages of grief were made, but like, you see him deny, you see him bargain, you see him get anger,
Right. Sadness.
you see him accept it. He goes through those
He does
stages.
go through
I don't know if
each
he goes
stage.
through them.
I think
in
he does.
the order.
Oh, I'm curious
so, like,
now.
I don't know if that was purposeful, but it is interesting that he kind of does that. Because he tries to bargain with him.
Right.
Like, all the stuff is there.
Yes.
Which makes it a little more alliterative. Clearly, there's a lot of that in the Twilight Zone where you can read it not just surface level. Like, there's an iceberg when it comes to a lot of these episodes.
Yes.
Even the ones like this that are more cutesy and corny.
Yeah,
There's some
just a
stuff
little
we can read into
tale.
it.
Just like a little tale to read.
Yeah. Yeah, this could easily be like a little short story. So his big plan... What are the stages of grief? Just in case we missed one there. It's denial.
So the 5 stages of grief, it starts with denial.
Which he does.
Then anger.
Which he does.
Then bargaining.
Which he does.
Then depression. Which he does.
Eh,
He kind
you
of
think he
does, yeah. Because I'm thinking, think about it. He's like already upset about his life, and now he's gonna have to give it up for her because now he's depressed about
Yeah.
her dying. So I think
Yeah.
depression is a part of it, and then finally acceptance.
Yeah, so he kind of does that throughout the episode, which I think is kind of interesting.
I didn't even catch that right away. I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, 'cause, I mean, it is easy, like I said, to do these kind of things with these episodes of the Twilight Zone, but again, the theme of death and that kind of stuff, because of Rod Serling's experience in the war and everything, it kind of comes up a lot, and it is interesting to find these little things. That's why we're here. That's why we're telling you these stories. That's our point.
Right.
We're storytelling in our way and kind of trying to give you a little bit more to look at when you're looking at these.
Right.
Good, bad, or otherwise. So Bookman's big plan is to set up a peddling station, a pitch, and he's gonna delay death by selling him stuff. I'm gonna sell everything to Death, which is a crazy plan. It's extremely corny.
Oh, yeah.
So Death comes back, and he's, like, sitting on the stoop, because he's like, oh, yeah, I gotta get in there by midnight. And he's like, you're setting up a pitch right now? Like, it's the middle of the night.
Right.
And Bookman's like, oh, yeah, I sell some stuff. And he's selling ties. He's got, like, a bunch of ties. Men's ties. This is where I think that Death is in on it again. Because there's a couple of little shots where Death has, like, kind of a smile on his face as he watches Lou go into his pitch.
Right.
Starts, like, selling stuff. And you see him, like, get kind of a smile on his face. Which could just be, like, I'm just waiting. But I think it's really, like, he's letting the old man do his one last act.
There it is. Here it comes. Yeah.
And
that's why I agreed with you that I'm like, I think he's in on it. I think it was all fated to happen.
Well, and the other thing about it is, so he starts trying to sell Death a shirt tie.
Right.
And he's like, feel it. And he's trying to sell him little silk, like,
it's
threads.
from across the seas and all of these, like...
Sent by Oriental birds! Bring it in one by one. And I don't know what an Oriental bird is. I guess it's a bird from the Asia Pacific. It used to be colloquially called the Orient. And...
You look up Oriental birds, they're really pretty.
But Death is like, I'll take everything you got. I'll buy one. Okay, I'll take 4. He keeps buying stuff from him, and it's like, why would Death want any of
Death's
this?
like sweating and like getting crazy.
And he's sweating. His hair's out of place. He's all disheveled because he's just listening to Bookman give this.
And he's
pitch.
getting all excited by it.
It's kind of crazy. I'll take everything you have.
And then he has one final thing to sell, though.
The one last thing he has to say.
Well, I was just saying that, so he says, I'll take everything you've got, and then he goes, but I have one final thing to sell, and it's like, he goes into this whole pitch about a manservant.
I thought this was...
This part's kind of dumb.
Oh, really?
You thought it was sweet?
Differing opinions.
Well, okay. There's two routes I went with this. It's a little stupid, and I feel like this is where Death would have known he was up to something. That's why I think it's kind of dumb, because I'm like, okay, come on. Death doesn't see that he's up to something. He's selling himself. But here's my other thought. This was also his way of bargaining, that he could literally just be dead, but also be with Death, so he could still be among the living. That he would actually become the manservant, be like helpful to Death, and still get to kind of do his thing in a living sort of way.
I took it more as, because he says he eats little, he needs little, he rests only occasionally. I thought he was saying, like, I thought he was literally, I guess not literally, but I thought he was selling it, take me and not only will you be able to take me to the afterlife, but I'll assist you.
Well, that's what I'm saying,
And so instead of just taking Maggie, take me and I won't even go to heaven. I'll just follow with
you.
So
I'll help you, and I'll be a part of your team.
It's corny.
Yeah.
It's definitely, but I thought it was kind of like his, like, a sweet little, like, don't take her, take me. Like,
yeah, it is like a cute way of saying, like, yes, take me instead. It felt so obvious then to me that it was like, okay, come on, Death. Like, open your eyes here. This one's kind of obvious, you know. The other ones I could still see him getting, like, excited about, like, his way of pitching, because sometimes you get drawn into stuff that people say, right? So I could see that happening, but then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now you flipped it into something weird.
Well, he doesn't get into the full take me with you as your manservant before the midnight
right,
clock
that's true.
rings, and Death kind of is like, wait, I missed my appointment.
Right.
So maybe he would have figured out, I don't know. But again, like, if Death was in on it, then he was kind of letting him give that spiel.
Right.
But the bell tolls, and the little girl is going to live, because he misses his appointment, which Death acts like that's never happened, and it's going to unravel the space-time continuum.
Right.
Which I guess
grand
he's going to have
design.
to find a destination of this girl. Yeah, there's a grand design.
Yep.
I think he might say that. I can't remember if he does or not.
I don't remember. I just know that from Final Destination.
Right, it's
that's the whole point, is the grand design.
The little girl's name, Maggie Polanski, is the little girl's name, we find out. I don't know how common of a name Polanski was, or if like Roman Polanski was known in 1959.
I don't know.
Bookman is happy, and I think Death is pretending to be frustrated. But basically, Bookman is kind of willingly now kind of says like, I'm ready to make the agreement, because he made a pitch for the Angels.
Right.
He even says it,
Well,
like, made one for the Angels.
And it was for an angel. He did a pitch to an angel. The Angel of Death. So he literally did a pitch
for an
angel.
Yeah. So literally for an angel.
Yes.
And he recognizes that it's time for him now. And he takes the pitch box with him, because he's like, you never know, someone might need something.
Right. And Death kind of like
he's
laughs at that, doesn't he? Like just like shakes his head.
Yeah. And he's like, I'm going up there, right? Like, I'm not going to hell. Like, if I'm going to hell, let's talk about it some more. And he's like, no, you made it. I do like the way that Death phrases it. Like, yeah, you made it. Like, yeah, it was good.
Right. Well, like, he even, like,
Bookman...
at the beginning, though, he even says, like, well, hey, I mean, I get to tell you about this. Is it one that it just sneaks up on you? I think for the bad people, they don't tell him. You know, it's just like, no, you just die. You're dead. I'm taking you. Come on, let's go.
Well, he wasn't going to tell Maggie. He was just going to take her.
True, but maybe innocence of a child. I don't know.
Yeah. That's true. At the innocence of a
fucking child.
And the two of them walk off, Death and Lou.
As friends.
Walk off as friends. As peers, like at the end of the Deathly Hallows.
That's what I was thinking. Yes, the three brothers. And he greets Death like an old friend.
And they left like equals. See, everything takes from the Twilight Zone.
I feel like it does.
Even though this is clearly like an old,
wives' tale.
Yeah, it's a parable of trying to cheat death, told by Rod Serling in a different setting. I do like that we can point out in modern times where we still like to tell these stories. Mm-hmm. The closing narration is mirroring the beginning narration, and it talks about, he's a man beloved by the children, and therefore it ends with this line, which is, but throughout his life, a man beloved by the children, and therefore a most important man. It ends with like how he was ending all the episodes, where it was like, couldn't happen, you say? Probably not in most places, but it did in the Twilight Zone. And that's how the episode ends. So I think did I make you go first on is everybody? Should I go first on
go
this
ahead.
one? Okay. So does it have shelf life as an individual episode? I will say this. I think it's a sweet little episode. It's a fun little episode for a younger audience that wants to get into the Twilight Zone. And I think that the acting is very good. I think it moves. It really doesn't, again, like the pacing is not bad. But I will say, I don't think this one makes the shelf. This is not one of your classics. I think some people like it if they see it as a kid, I think that it sticks with them.
Yeah.
But for me, I will say this is not going on the Twilight Zone shelf of episodes as an individual episode.
Right. I would say, yeah, it's not like on the top shelf. I would say that it's like a watch it. I would say watch it. I think it's a nice episode to see, and it has like a nice tone and pace and everything, so it actually works really well. But yeah, I don't think I would put it like on the top shelf. No. I would say, it's there. Watch it. That's about it. maybe.
Is it on any?
It could be like, bottom shelf or like in the closet or whatever.
I was gonna say, are you putting this in the box with Small Soldiers?
Maybe.
You said you can own it. Just put it in the box.
It's not on the shelf. Goes with all the other Twilight Zone episodes that end up in the box.
Yeah, it's your box labeled Twilight Zone.
But you should watch it first before you put it in that
agree.
box.
You can watch this one. You can watch this one.
Because I like the story behind it. I do like the story.
So that was One for the Angels. Coming up after the break, I'll just read you the narration that Rod Serling said back in 1959. We invite you to take a walk down a western frontier street at the elbow of a doomed gunman whose salvation lies in nothing less than a magic potion and a Colt 45. Mr. Dan Duryea stars in Mr. Denton on Doomsday. Next time on The Twilight Zone. We'll be right back.
Twilight Zone has been brought to you by Push Button Lilt, the foam home permanent for neat and easy curler permanents, and neat and easy roller permanents too. Lilt.
And we're back. So we are moving on to episode number 3 of the Twilight Zone Season 1, which is called Mr. Denton on Doomsday, from October 16th, 1959, written by Rod Serling and directed by Alan Reisner. Alan Reisner was a TV director for a bunch of different stuff, and it stars Dan Durea, who did a bunch of different things. He's like a 1940s type of actor. It's stuff that I've never heard of, because we're talking a long time ago. But Martin Landau also makes an appearance. Martin Landau is pretty famed, an actor of some fame. Died a few years ago. He was in a bunch of different things. Some people might know him here or there. He was in a bunch of stuff for, what's his name? Tim Burton. So he played Bela Lugosi and Ed Wood.
Oh.
He was actually in the animated Spider-Man series.
Wait, really?
He played the Scorpion, I guess. Who knew? But I know him from playing Bela Lugosi and Ed Wood, because I think he got an Oscar nomination at the very least for that. I don't know if he might have won. He's a fairly well-known actor. In this, he plays the villain, basically. But he's been an actor for a long time, and he actually comes back a few years down the line in the Twilight Zone.
Right.
Mr. Denton on Doomsday. Rachel, you want to give the synopsis on what we're about to see here?
So we're taken back to, like, the Wild West, desert gunman type era, I guess. I always feel like, did this actually ever happen in the world? Or is it always just on, like, a Western show? But we're taken into, like, a Western, and there's a drunk that apparently used to be a good shooter, and people know him and everything, but he is now just a drinker, and that's all he really could be. But the whole idea with this one is that he kind of has to drop the drunkenness and pick up the gun again, or there's a potential that he's just going to die. There's another person that wants to do a it's not a shootout, but what is it, like a draw match with him?
Yeah, we'll get into it.
So, I mean, that's kind of like the whole idea is like how does he either bring himself back to what he used to be, or
it deals
continue
with
on.
Redemption.
Right.
And fate.
And guilt and fate and...
Yeah. It's interesting because it feels like a cliche story of Westerns.
It does.
A little bit. And I don't know, again, if that's because this came out before the other junk, or if it really is a cliche. So let's start. Like you said, it's in the Old West. I feel like, and there's some episodes of the Twilight Zone that are in the Old West. I think that's twofold reasons. One, there were already sets built for the Old West, so it was easy to do stuff set in the West. Mm-hmm. And two, Westerns were extremely popular, so it makes sense to do something. If the Twilight Zone were on today, and it was, you'd think that a couple episodes would be like superhero driven, or something like that.
Sure,
like
because instead of like the Western
the
hero, it's more of a superhero.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. Which I don't think any of the episodes of the new Twilight Zone did have superheroes in it. It was very societal conscious.
Right.
But if it would have lasted longer, who knows? But it is our first Western on the Twilight Zone. So, Portrait of a Town Drunk is how it starts. And Al Denton is our protagonist. And what happens here is a drunk gets tossed out of the bar, and he looks pretty ratty. Mm-hmm. And we find a group of people follow him out. This is where Martin Landau comes in, and he is dressed in black. He looks like a creepy, like, Joker character. Like, Martin Landau is kind of a weird-looking guy anyway.
Yeah.
But he looks creepy here. He makes Denton sing to get a drink.
Yeah.
Because like this is how like pathetic this guy is. He doesn't have any money. He's just a drunk. He's basically like he's dancing for nickels. At this point.
He's the jester.
Yeah, he is the jester. It's a good way to put it. And Denton, I said he looks like a proto Roddy Piper. He's got like some disheveled hair. He does.
No, yeah,
he looks a little like Roddy Piper.
I see it.
But he obliges and he starts singing. And do you remember the song, Rachel? Do you want me to sing it for you?
Go ahead, sing it for me.
Come on, Denton.
How dry I am. How dry I am.
Charlie, can't you break that up?
Nobody knows.
I don't like it any more than you do. The misery they give that guy out there.
How dry I am. Nobody cares.
How dry I am. How dry I am. It's really bad.
It's a really bad song.
It's supposed to be bad, obviously, but like it's even worse because this guy's just so pathetic.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just this laughing stock.
Right.
And the bartender and a showgirl inside the saloon are lamenting that they're making him do it. They're basically like, can't believe that they're making him like go through with this. They're so mean to him. We don't really know why he's a drunk. We just know that he is a drunk. And the way that they're talking about it, they seem like they're just kind of very upset about the whole situation.
Mm-hmm.
So Landau breaks the bottle and then throws it at Denton. And Denton runs, grabs it, and starts like chugging down whatever he can.
Right.
Which, I don't know, clearly bottles back then built differently than they are now. But do you think he's drinking glass? Like... There's glass and sand in there now.
I would potential.
And
yeah,
dirt.
That's a potential.
I guess if you're that big of a drunk, you just don't care. I thought he was taking his life in his own hands because he's drinking some glass.
Oh my god.
In that broken bottle. So this is when the narration tells in. It tells us Denton's backstory about he's just how drunk he would give his soul for another chance, but there happens to be a peddler who, just like in the last one there was a peddler, in this one there is a peddler. Although Serling says that it's parlance of the times. So a peddler is what they were actually called back then, as opposed to a pitchman. And a rather fanciful-looking little man in a black frock coat is there. So there's this like salesman guy that looks like a buzzard, kind of. Like he's an older guy, but he has like a long face.
Sure.
And while Denton falls asleep on the ground, the peddler looks at him, kind of like shakes his head and walks away, and a gun appears on the ground next to Denton. So from there, yeah, like just magically, like if they wanted to make it so that it wasn't total fantasy, have the peddler place the gun on the ground next to him,
right?
But it like shows up out of nowhere, which was a pretty good effect.
No,
like
yeah,
you know how they did it, but like still, like it just kind of appears out of nowhere. It comes into frame. But what happens is we come back and Denton wakes up and he finds the gun and he starts examining it. And he looks over as like a gorilla at a zoo. With like, look at if you handed him a microphone. He's like, what is this thing?
Yeah,
like,
he does kind of look at it funky, even though like he does know what it is.
He's really trying to remember what it is.
Right.
I said that the score is super annoying. It's like stock score in this one, but it's this annoying clarinet that keeps like wah wah wah.
That
like,
is kind of true. I think that might be one of the things that I was like, oh god, about it, but
I think it's supposed to be from something. It's from something. Some sort of classical music. I just don't know what it is.
Okay.
We get another look at the peddler. I described his face as being very map looking. Lots of lines on this dude's face. You can draw the states on it, I think.
You could draw the states on it.
All 50 would have been represented by this type.
Oh my god.
So the showgirl comes out. Ms. Smith, he says, comes to check on him. And she mentions that he used to be good with a gun. And he says, that was a long time ago. It's that prototypical archetype story of the broken man that used to be the hero, right?
Right.
She asks him he hasn't held a gun in a long time, and she says she blames the liquor. She basically says, like, it's probably because of all that booze you've been drinking. And she asks him, like, why does he do it? Why does he keep drinking? And he says he doesn't know. He just picked up the habit one day and never stopped.
Yep.
Which is probably a pretty good allegory for alcoholism.
I think it is, yeah.
Because he calls it a habit. He's like, I just picked up the habit one day and then stopped doing it. Although we get the reason for why he did it later.
Yeah, but he
on.
continuously stays drunk, so he doesn't remember.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. Yeah, because I guess when he does eventually tell him, he's sobering up at that point.
Right.
So Landau and company come back out and taunt him again, and they make him sing again. And she pleads with him not to do it. She's like, don't demean yourself. Do not do this. Right. You don't have to do this. Mm-hmm. You'd make a deal with the devil before you, like, humiliate yourself here. But he acquiesces, and he sings again.
Of course.
This time it's super pathetic, and he starts to cry.
Yeah, it's very sad at this point.
Because he, like, realizes what he is. He's just so pathetically, like, miserable.
Yeah.
Landau basically is like, all right, fine, get in the saloon, rummy, go get your drink. So he starts to go in, but before he can, Landau sees the gun in his hand. He's like, wait a minute. Oh, like, just like schoolyard bullies these guys are.
They are. They really are.
So he starts to taunt him again, and he basically challenges him to a draw. And they're in the saloon at this point, no. They're like on the steps of the saloon at this point, challenging to a draw. If I'm the bartender, I'm like, can you guys go do this out in the street?
Yeah, like, why aren't you doing this inside? What are you doing?
Landau basically forces him, and this is where you get, I don't know, Rachel, if you were to type in Martin Landau Twilight Zone, I kind of wonder if this is one of the images, because he bends at the knees. I'm going to stand up so that I can do it, because it is the weirdest stance. So he does, like, this type of stance, where he's going to, like, fight him.
Yeah, it's like almost like a grappling, like he's about to do a grapple and wrestling or something.
And he's built like the Joker. So he's, like, tall and really lanky, and it's very unsettling. It's the creepiest thing in this episode.
It's just weird.
But because he's such a weird looking guy, and he has this stringy hair. He's got this, like, big strand of hair coming down past his eyes.
Oh, yeah.
All greasy, like. It's just, he's very off-putting.
I think that's the idea, though. And, like, and he is also wearing the dark clothes, so he is supposed to be the bad guy.
Right. Sure.
He's got the black hat on. You know, you pick the white hat or the black hat. Good guy or bad guy.
He's doing a very good job.
Oh, yeah.
He is a very good actor. It's just that, all right, he's like, ugh. Like, he's got, like, his mouth open. It's just very odd.
Yeah.
And Denton tries to have Ms. Smith explain why he won't do it. He's just like, I can't do this. I won't do this. But as he's doing it, he's kind of, like, twirling the gun around in his hand, and it goes off and shoots the gun out of, we end up learning that Martin Landau's character's name is Dan. It shoots it out of that guy's hand.
Right.
And the peddler kind of looks pleased, and the group celebrates because he's like, wow, what a shot. Like, he shot it right out of his hand.
It's like, he did it, though. He was just swinging it around, but I guess they thought it was like a game or like a ploy.
A trick shot?
Yeah, he was just playing with him, like, oh, I'm so drunk, I won't do this. Shoot. You know?
Because the group celebrates and they bring Denton back into the bar. And I kind of wonder if this is one of those situations, because all of these people, maybe they go through town, but they all come back to this town. And what we learn later is that Denton would be well known. So he's probably like a local legend. To kind of see him come back to do something that you've always heard about, it is probably like, wow, I can't believe it. The legend is true. He is like a great shot or whatever. But then Landau is pissed because he's been embarrassed.
Yes, he is.
He is biffed.
He's humiliated
in this. Yeah.
Manure.
And
manure.
Well,
I hate manure.
And he comes back in and he wants to draw in the saloon. So, like, now, again, if I'm the bartender It's like,
Take
guys,
this outside.
take it outside. There's no way that you don't have a gun. It's the Old West. Like, you
Right.
could take a gun out and be like, all right, fellas, take it outside.
Mm-hmm.
But they act like they're just going to draw right there in the saloon, which is so bizarre to me.
It's a bit asinine. It is.
It just feels like they didn't want to, it feels like they didn't have a whole setup outside to be able to film it, right? So they were like, just do it in the saloon.
They could only do the one angle, so they couldn't like get from the other
The-
angle.
If they shoot from the other angle, they're going to see telephone poles and
Right.
stuff. So they can't shoot it that way. But basically, Landau goes to shoot him, but the gun goes off again for Denton, and it breaks this ceiling light, like
the
a
chandelier.
chandelier.
Yeah.
And it kind of stops him from being able to shoot again. Falls right in front of Landau, and it prevents him from getting shot.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of them are really excited, and they are like, wow, Mr. Denton, like, you did that shot. And they're calling him Mr. Denton. And he is like, wait, what did you call me?
Yeah, he kind of does it in like a bit of a what did you call me? That would scare people.
But the reason that he's saying it that way is because he's like, he recognizes that they respect him again.
Right.
They're calling him Mr. Denton.
Which is more respectable.
Respect.
Yeah.
So the bartender offers him a drink, and he turns it down. He's kind of like, you know what? I think I've had enough. Like, he kind of recognizes that he's won the respect back, so he's going to stop drinking.
Mm-hmm.
The other conclusion to this could be that he stopped drinking because he realizes what's coming.
Right.
And he thinks he needs to sober up. I prefer to think the former.
No, I think that makes sense to me. No, I wish it was he's sobering up because of the respect that he realizes he can still have. I prefer that. I agree.
Yeah, it's got to be. I mean, the whole episode is about redemption and fate, so that kind of makes sense that he feels like he's kind of redeemed. So he rejects the drink, and then he bitch slaps Martin Landau on the way out.
Yeah.
Which is a nice little touch. So then he basically tells the story to Ms. Smith about what happened, which it turns out that he used to be the best gun in the town or in the area. And he was so good, someone would come to town. He says each day, which I find to be a little ridiculous. I think he's remembering it incorrectly. But someone would come to town each day and challenge him, and they would try to outdraw him.
Right.
Which is, of course, I feel like it's got to be a Western cliche. How many duels could really have been going on back then?
Well, the whole idea is the idea to kill the other during a draw, or is it to disarm, or is it to just point it?
I would assume you got to shoot the gun.
Right.
Which then I think that you're shooting to kill, right?
I'd imagine that would happen a lot because now you're just pointing and shooting. But it's like in this, it feels like it's a disarm. Disarm
in this
only.
It feels, yeah, in this it disarm only. It does feel a little bit like they're playing by second year rules. At the same time, I don't know, because because what we find out is one day a 16-year-old came into town and he killed him.
Right.
Was he shooting this 16-year-old dead?
I guess.
And I don't know, and it's hard to tell. Did he know he was 16? Did he mean to kill him? Did he feel like he had to kill him? Like, they don't go into details of it.
No. And I'm half wondering if he didn't know he was
after
16 until afterwards, and he looked at his face and he realized, oh my god, wait, this is a kid.
Right, yeah. So, and then and they kind of say, like, he started to fall off even before that. He would get drunk so that he could forget about killing the previous person.
Sure. And he got drunker and drunker, and he started earlier and earlier because of it.
And after he killed the 16-year-old, he just becomes a total drunk.
Yep.
And he loses his ability to shoot. So, and he basically sounds like he knows that word will get out that he's back. This time, it sounds like he's planning a suicide mission.
Okay.
He basically is planning, I think, to not shoot back and let the guy kill him. Or he thinks he can't do it. He thinks like this is all a fluke. So he's gonna try, but he knows he's so bad with a gun now that it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So he knows the guy's gonna come, and he's just kind of preparing. Because he's like, I'm gonna go get a shave. He wants to look good for what he thinks is gonna be like his last duel. Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I think that is what he says. I think that's what he says, yeah. Or something similar. This is kind of the same backstory that Gene Wilder has in Blazing Saddles. I don't know if you've ever watched Blazing Saddles, Rachel, have you?
I have.
Yeah, so it is kind of a similar backstory that he has in that, right?
Yeah, it does kind of feel that way.
He said because he's got the jittery hand after shooting a kid or something like that. So again, I don't know if this is a trope of Westerns or if it
is. Maybe it is one of those things where it's like, oh, I'm like the best gunman, and then all of a sudden I do something that makes me regret it. Which sounds like it tends to be I killed a kid, but
Well, and I was trying to figure out, I can't imagine this is me reading it with a modern lens, but I was like, is this supposed to be like a toxic masculinity story? Or even a story about masculinity? Because it's
because you have to be the biggest and the baddest and the
it's the like best. why are these people coming into town to test him? What are they gaining from this macho head game of like, I'm gonna come into town and I'm gonna prove that I'm better. I'm the better gunman.
A pissing match, if you will.
Yeah, it's a dick measuring contest. I mean, which I cannot imagine that Serling was clearly progressive, but and ahead of his time on some stuff. But I cannot imagine that he would have been thinking that way.
Right. No, because I don't think was even really a thought then. It was like a real idea then.
But it is a way to view it through a modern lens.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Well, is it kind of saying something about how stupid it is to like... Well, and I guess it doesn't have to be about masculinity. It could just be, don't try to one-up yourself to be the best, or don't feel like, again, Back to the Future, like if somebody calls you chicken.
Right, you don't have to, answer to that.
I'm 3 for 3 on these Back to the Future
You really are. That's actually a good one, though, too. I mean, there is a Western in Back to the Future as well. So
there is a Western in Back to the Future.
And there is a draw match.
There is. I kind of want to know now if Robert Zemeckis was just a big fan of season 1 of Twilight Zone. So we come back. He's shaved. He got his hair cut. He's looking very dapper. Someone comes to his little, like, shacky house and is like, you Denton? And he's like, yeah. And tells him that, well, there's this guy, Pete or Paul, can't remember his name, short name. And he's coming.
He looks like Pretty Boy.
I remember him looking a little bit like Brock Lesnar. I don't know if that's true.
Because he just had like a curly blonde hair.
Yeah, you're right.
He doesn't look like Brock Lesnar at all. Are you kidding?
He looked. Yeah, you're right though. He does have he has like a baby
like the
face.
Prince came in. You're like, oh, Prince Charming is here. Like, what is happening?
No, you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right. Pete. Sam.
I didn't mean
Saul,
to say it that way.
Short name.
Pete Grant.
Pete. You're hitting that hard P with Pete Grant. Anyway. Denton says he will be at the saloon, and he kind of realizes that there's no backing down. So once again, why can't he back down from this? Why does he have to do this? Is this some sort of contractual obligation?
He's a cowboy. Yes. You are now a cowboy. You are obligated to take every match that is set in front of you.
I just don't understand.
They challenge you, you have to accept it.
You don't have to accept it. It's not even like he walked up and slapped him with a glove and challenged him to a duel.
Threatening his life. He's just like, hey, you want to do this? This sounds like fun. I heard you're the best here. I'm the best over there, and let's do this.
I really don't understand. It's like a chess match. If someone can write in and was this a cult? Yeah. What is the modern equivalent to having to accept a duel where you're going to be shot?
Well,
you had to, not like the modern equivalent of that, but the modern equivalent of
the idea
you have to accept this challenge.
Yeah. What would be the modern equivalent?
I don't know, because that doesn't happen.
I'm just gonna stick with my chess match. I feel like if a chess player challenges another chess player, they have to play that game of chess.
Yes. That's the unwritten code of chess.
Yes.
Is that you have to play this game of chess if someone challenges you.
That's right.
Chess players that are listening, let us know if your city... does a chessboard need to be present? Or if you just know that that's a chess player and you're like, I challenge you to a game of chess.
Yes, and then they have to set the date and the time for the match.
It'll be at the saloon.
I don't know if the saloon has a chess table, but yeah, I get you. I was like thinking Central Park, the third chess table from the right.
Yes. Meet you at the third chess table. I mean, I guess all of those folks, the folks that play at the park and just kind of do, sit there all day playing chess, I guess they would.
Oh, they have to. Yeah, they're obligated.
They have to accept your challenge. For any folks that are in the New York area around Central Park, please let us know if you just go challenge one of those chess people. Do they just have to play you?
Someone test this theory. Go challenge a chess player to a duel, please.
Take out a glove, slap him, see what happens.
And write it to us. Let us know.
Don't actually do that. Don't
slap them in the face.
Liable.
No. You can still challenge them to a chess duel. I don't see a problem with that at all.
No, that's just a friendly game.
No, well, I mean, it could be kind of fiery. You never know.
Yeah, you never know. I do kind of want to know though if somebody does have like a thought of what the equivalent today would be. Like, I cannot imagine in the wild someone walking up to me and being like, "You, Kevin?" And I'm being like, "Yeah." And they're like, "I'm gonna challenge you to Simpsons trivia." What would
You'd have to. You can't say no to that.
I don't know what the equivalent. I'm trying to think of something like the listeners know we might have some knowledge about, but what is that?
I mean, maybe it's like a video game thing at this point now.
That's true. I do believe I would believe that happens a lot on Twitch, where it's like I gotta find Loves to Spooge because I gotta challenge him to, a game of NBA 2K.
Ooh.
Or FIFA or whatever,
we're going back now.
Beat him. So anyway, he decides to go practice shooting, and he's terrible at it. So it's not like he's gotten better suddenly. He's still bad. Like, he needs practice. He's totally out of practice. Probably can't even do it anymore, even if he had practice, because he's destroyed his hand-eye coordination. He hears a noise, and it's the peddler is outside. And the peddler gives him kind of a look. And Denton thinks that he's, like, trying to sell something. So he comes out. And Denton, God, I wish I could, like, think of a good... Like, I was thinking, like, his acting reminded me of something. But I just couldn't put my finger on it. But he's kind of whiny.
A little, yeah.
Like, he's kind of like, look, I'm not trying to buy anything. Like, yeah, that's kind of the way he talks.
He's got a whiny tone to his voice, yeah.
Which I think is because he just wants to be left alone, and he thinks that he's going to get shot tomorrow. So he's like, I don't want to buy anything. But the peddler is like, no, Mr. Denton, I have something for you. And has a potion. He tells him, or you could call it an elixir. But he tells him it will solve his problem. Because the man who drinks it will become the fastest of the fast. And of course he's talking about shooting the gun off. He'll become the fastest of the fast. And he says it only lasts for 10 seconds. It'll let you hit what you're aiming for exactly. It hits right in the spot that you're aiming for. So the peddler, who looks a little bit like Jim Varney, I thought, Ernest. He does.
A little bit, yeah.
He like, oh, hey, Mr. Denton, I got this elixir for you. Add that to the list.
Can we add that one to the list? Because I haven't watched it in a long while.
We can do the whole damn series.
Oh gosh. The only two that I remember are the Christmas one and the Halloween one with Miak.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe he just needed some Miak. Maybe that's what the elixir is.
That is what it is Miak.
So he lets... I don't know why that one got me.
I don't know.
I'm just thinking of Ernest being like, I got some Miak for you, Mr. Denton.
I think it's like skim milk. Because like when he drinks it, it looks like it's skim milk. Anyways.
I eat success for breakfast.
With skim milk.
Where are we at? So
he gives him a free sample.
He gives him a sample, and he's able to shoot a lamppost.
Mm-hmm.
Which I counted, because I was like, I don't know if this is 10 seconds. And then I was like, oh, maybe it is like 5. Because then the peddler's counting the 10 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
He offers him a freebie, basically. I thought a little aggressively, kind of like a drug dealer. He's like, take it! He gets like, whoa, jeez.
Yeah, a little forceful. Maybe he just made it. That's why it doesn't actually last that long. It's really just water. Sugar water.
You think he was doing like a placebo effect? He was like, you had it inside you all along, Mr. Denton.
I think so. I think it's a snake juice type of thing. You know, what is, not snake juice. What do they call it?
Snake oil.
Snake oil. I think it's a snake oil.
Snake juices from Parks and Rec. We are referencing the hell out of this episode.
I don't mean to. It's happening. It's just happening. But I do think it might be like a fake elixir. I mean, I guess because it is the Twilight Zone and it is supposed to be a bit more magical, it could be something. But
that would technically be the second episode where we're accusing the fantastical character of being kind of tricking the protagonist into
smarmy.
His own fate.
Yeah.
Which is possible. Like you said, it's the Twilight Zone. They're all kind of like that. Like they all kind of it's one man writing these, and he kind of has, the same thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, it's also kind of a monkey paw-ish, It's like, oh, okay, is this thing actually, like, doing something? It's magical, It's weird, It's a peddler, that's why I keep thinking of that as well.
That's right. It's the second episode in a row with a salesman.
It's a peddler.
And a peddler. It's a peddler. The peddler gives him some, and he says, like, you can just take it for free. Henry J. Fate is his name. Okay,
oh God, really
that's
on
not
the
even
nose.
subtle.
Come on.
Yeah. Although his tagline of Fate stepped in, that's a hell of a good tagline.
That is good, because he is Fate then. Yeah, Fate steps in.
That almost makes me think even if
even
if he is the embodiment of Fate, like we had the embodiment of death
True.
before.
Again, yes.
Then it's that, or he changed his name to be able to have that tagline.
Exactly.
Like,
he came up with the tagline and went, oh, wait a minute, what if I was Fate? Oh. It's a hell of an idea.
That's a hell of an idea. So Denton, the next day, is waiting at the saloon. And again, I was just like, what is the point of this? There's a doctor there, I guess, to declare one of them dead, or to your, like... Why is there just a doctor here?
It's just the town doctor. It's a tiny little strip, Kev. I mean, come on. The town doctor's always probably at the bar.
I mean, I guess. But the way that they feature him,
no,
like, the doctor's here, so we can get started. Like, and Grant shows up, Paul Grant. I had the name later in my notes. His reveal is framed very well.
Paul, it's Pete.
I thought.
Isn't it Pete?
Oh, you're right, Pete.
Paul.
Pistol Pete. Yeah,
how dare you?
Pete, whatever.
How dare you name him Paul? His name is Pete.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
Besmirched his name.
I apologize to the actor and to the character Pete Grant.
Do you just use his real name in this show?
No. I don't have his name.
That would have been great. I'll just go by Pete Grant. It's fine.
This actor can't respond to anything but his real name. So, he looks quite young compared to Denton. That's clearly done on purpose.
Right.
And again, they're just going to do this in the saloon?
Yeah, again, yep. Everybody's just kind of, like, pressed against the walls.
They, like, run away from Denton because they're like, this is going to happen. And okay, let's think about this for a second. they're going to shoot each other for one. So let's say one of them shoots and misses. So now there's going to be some damage to this saloon.
Or a possible ricochet.
Or a ricochet that's going to shoot and hit some innocent bystander.
Yep. Maybe that's why the doctor's there.
To take care of the person that did not consensually agree to this duel.
Exactly.
What if it hits the doctor?
He'll be fine.
It's fine.
It's fine. The bartender is also the stand-in doctor. That's how I always picture a Western.
Back then, why not? Like that's about as good as you were.
Some of the alcohol pours it on the wound. You're fine.
Yeah, you're fine. Just walk it off. It's kind of festering. You'll probably be dead in a couple of days. Whatever.
We'll cut it off.
Or the shot hits and the guy slumps over, and now you just have blood all over the floor.
Yep, you gotta
which
clean
I
that
get.
out.
It's a saloon, but you have to clean this up now.
Yeah, it's probably typical. They just hose it down. It's fine.
Get out the hose. That is what water was for back in the Old West. It wasn't for drinking.
I would never drink that water. Ugh.
It was for cleaning the saloon floor.
Oh, after duels, yes.
After draws.
After daily draws.
Yeah, your daily draw. It's 6:00. It's almost time for the draw.
Get the hose ready.
Get the hose. Denton goes and drinks the potion.
Mm-hmm.
But then he notices that Grant is also drinking a potion. So
Same
I
bottle.
guess we're supposed to believe here that Grant also had
a run-in with the peddler?
Yeah, a run-in with fate. So they both draw and they shoot and they hit each other in the hand.
Yep. In the shooting hand.
In their shooting hands. I do love that the doctor stands up and is like, "No winner, gents! No winner!" Like,
yep, like
it's a draw.
Yeah, he's like also the ref.
Yeah, like not only was he the doctor, but he was also the referee. So, like, for all of you that are gonna go out and challenge each other in chess matches, make sure you have a doctor there.
Yep. Dr. Hat must
that can
be
stand there
to be your ref.
And if your chess game goes down to a draw, have him make sure to be like, "No winner, gents! No winner! It's a draw!" So my question to you is this, Rachel. Did fate make it so both of them hit each other in the hand, thus making it... Because what ends up being declared is that the doctor looks at both hands and is like, you can't shoot anymore. Like, neither of them can shoot anymore.
Right.
It'll
be slow, and it'll be, hard to do. Yes.
Yeah. So, did Denton do that? Because that would mean technically that Grant also didn't want to kill Denton?
I have a feeling that's true.
Or did fate do that? And... it just kind of like...
Well, I bet here's my idea. Okay. So we know that Denton doesn't want to actually shoot and kill the kid. Okay. We don't know the kid's backstory, but I'm wondering if he was pressured into becoming the best shooter.
Okay.
So maybe he doesn't actually want to do this either, but he feels forced again to duel somebody in order to continue on.
Right.
And fate is helping.
He's got to get to the state championships.
Exactly. And he's just like, I really don't want to do this though. And I think fate stepped in to be like, look, you don't have to, and I'll make it so you don't have to do this anymore.
I like that interpretation.
That is my interpretation of this.
Yeah,
yes.
I kind of like that. Because I was legitimately confused as to like, okay, who was wishing for what? Did fate just do all of this to just get them both out of the jam? Right. Because like clearly he went to fate or fate went to him. Like
yeah. Because I mean, Grant is the old, Pete is the new.
Right.
Wait. Not Grant. Wait, Grant and Pete the same. No, Denton is the old.
Denton.
Denton is the old. Grant is the new. And Grant now doesn't have to ever feel that guilt that Denton does feel. And Denton feels
Yeah.
now like I don't have to do this, and I can now live my life and not be a drunk, and I feel redeemed.
Right.
And he
I
saved,
almost
and he
started-
saved another soul, technically, too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I almost went into the song from Shock Treatment, which is the sequel to Rocky Horror, which we'll get to one day. It'll be a while, but we'll get to it.
I don't think I've ever seen Shock Treatment.
It's a weird ass movie, but
Well,
the
so is
songs are
Rocky
good.
Horror.
And it takes place in a town called Denton. So there's a song where it's like Denton, Denton. And I don't know if this is that's a reference. But again, everything goes back to this Twilight Zone.
It kind of feels like it now, huh?
So they both can't shoot, and Denton tells Grant that he can no longer ever shoot again in anger, and he's been blessed.
Yes.
Like he tells him like this is a blessing, you just don't realize it. So Denton is it's basically alluded to that like Denton's gonna get to live a long happy life because he doesn't have to shoot anymore.
Right.
That's our happy ending. So the peddler and Denton kind of nod to each other, and the peddler leaves the town. And that's the end of the episode. And I do not have the closing narration in front of me. But...
Mr. Henry Fate, dealer in utensils and pots and pans, liniments and potions. A fanciful little man in a black frock coat who can help a man climbing out of a pit, or another man from falling into one. Because, you see, fate can work that way in the Twilight Zone.
Thank you very much. See? Everybody can do a Rod Serling.
But that's exactly what I was trying to say before, too, is like, he helps one man climbing out of the pit and stops another man from falling in it.
Right.
Yep.
So that is the end of I almost called him Dr. Denton. Mr. Denton.
What is with you and Doctor today?
I want everyone to have the title of Doctor for some reason.
Dr. Death and Dr. Denton and Dr.
Because it's alliteration. You know how much I love alliteration.
Oh, we love alliteration, yeah. I mean, it is Mr. Denton on Doomsday. It could be Dr. Denton on Doomsday. That would be way better.
I don't know why he'd be a doctor, though.
I mean, like I said, everybody is the town doctor.
Everyone's the town doctor.
They're also a referee and a bartender.
So, Rachel, we've come to that time where we decide if this episode of Twilight Zone goes on the shelf. So are you putting Mr. Denton on Doomsday individually on your shelf?
So, funny thing with this one is like rewatching it, I'm like, oh, it's a Western. And then watching, like, oh, it's actually kind of interesting. And I liked watching it and it was enjoyable. However, I don't think I would put it on the shelf. Again, I would put it in the box. You know, you can read it, or you can read it. You can watch it. And then just
also
kind of...
get the teleplay and read it.
And then just, you know, put it away. It's fine. You saw it. It's good. It was kind of fun. But I don't think it actually belongs on the shelf.
I guess the way that we're doing this because it's an anthology, we can do this episode by episode and decide which episode wants to be on the shelf. I mean, overall, spoiler alert, Twilight Zone's probably going to end up on the shelf. So if you're going to buy the season...
Oh, yeah, the box set is on the shelf. Yeah, then this probably is on the shelf. But you know what I mean.
But, yeah, but we're doing it... Yeah, we're analyzing this individually. And you can buy the individual seasons, I'm sure, or the individual episodes, I'm sure, individually. So,
yeah,
you know, maybe some people want to do that. They just want to get digital copies of the ones that we recommend or something. Who knows? But I'm kind of there with you. So I don't think the story totally works, but now that you kind of you've changed my mind on it with your explanation, I do think it works better than what I was thinking when I first watched it or when I watched it for the show. But I do think it makes you care about the characters. I think again, acting's good. I think everything's good about it. I do think that it's worth a watch. Don't skip this one. But again, I'm with you. I don't think it makes my shelf. But it is worth watching.
Right.
And it's, I guess like you say, like maybe it's in the box, but it's not on your shelf. It doesn't have a place of prominence.
Sure. Or it could just be one that you stream for a night and there it goes. You
yeah.
know? I mean,
but it is.
I think it's a kind of like just a fun one to watch.
Yeah.
I was just kind of surprised when I was like, oh, it's a Western. And then I was like, oh, actually, I'm kind of interested in what's going to happen.
Yeah, because I always think that too. I don't know why I have that idea, but like I saw like, oh boy, it's a Western. Like I thought it was going to be like super hokey or kind of bad.
Sure.
But it wasn't. It's perfectly
It had a story.
fine.
Yeah, it had its little moral, I guess. I guess it's not really a moral.
It's something. It's
something.
like a parable.
A parable. Is that it? Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have like a hell of a moral at the end of it, but yeah. So yes, we're gonna keep going, even though we're kind of short-circuiting here. It's getting pretty late here in the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
But
I can't even. What time is it? I don't even know what time it is.
Well, see, that's
the
what's
clock
weird.
isn't seem
It's
to be
truly
working.
not
It's not
working.
moving.
It's not working for you either?
No.
That is okay, because mine is truly not working. So that's weird.
Yeah.
What time is it?
I don't know. My watch says something different than my phone says something different than my computer says something different. I don't even know what time it is.
And I've got a clock on the wall, and I mean it's dark in here, but it feels like the second hand just keeps going backwards.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not quite sure, but it's kind of weird. All right, Vince. So anyway, that is our episode here, and let me give you the before we go to a word from our sponsor or our fake sponsor. Next time on the Twilight Zone, the motion picture projector and this film provide a background into the next story when a most distinguished actress takes a journey into the Twilight Zone. When we come back, it's the 16mm shrine on Shelf Life in the Twilight Zone.
Twilight Zone, brought to you by Pall Mall Famous Cigarettes. Over, under, around, and through, Pall Mall travels pleasure to you.
And we're back. Well, Rachel, we continue our journey through the Twilight Zone. We are in the Twilight Zone, and we are on episode 4 of season 1, which is titled 16mm Shrine. It debuted on October 23rd, 1959, written by...
I think I just got the title.
What?
I think I just got the title. I think I understand the title. Yeah,
I kept saying
I'm sorry, who is it by?
16mm Shine, and I'm probably going to say 16mm Shine again, so just be prepared for that. But it's written by Rod Serling. It's directed by Mitchell Lyson, who directed some old-timey stuff. And this episode is kind of a take on... it's a take on it, and it kind of feels like the same kind of style of movie. So there's a movie, Rachel, I don't think that you know this one. You may have never even heard of it, but Sunset Boulevard. Have you ever heard of it? Okay.
I've heard of it, yes. I've never seen it, but I've heard of it.
I mean, I'm sure you can add this one to the list. It's a movie from 1950, and it basically is about an aging actress who keeps trying to get parts in Hollywood. It's by Billy Wilder, who's a very cynical movie director, and it's clearly trying to be thematic of aging actresses, which is very much what the whole point of this episode is. So it seems like Rod Serling's take on that storyline.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that, we can easily... this is for the folks at home that have not watched The Twilight Zone or don't know about a lot of the Twilight Zone stuff. You may recognize this storyline from an episode of Seinfeld in which Kramer goes to Los Angeles and one of his neighbors is like an old biddy actress.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, same idea. A Norma Desmond type. That's the actress from Sunset Boulevard. It's kind of an archetype now. A Norma Desmond type.
No, it kind of makes sense. Yeah.
We will get to Sunset Boulevard someday. 16mm Shrine. I guess that's because that is what the film reel used to be. 16mm. Is that?
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
So I guess that's the point of it. And
Because I would imagine, because it's all on film, not on, like, digital. So it's like, oh, wait, the film is probably that large.
yeah, because it's just this big-ass film reel. Because film used to, be bigger and crazier and flammable. And
Well, it was the original.
yeah. Just to kind of start out with, stars Ida Lupino is playing Barbara Jean in this episode.
Is it
and,
Ida?
Huh?
Is it Ida?
Oh, is it Ida? What did I say?
Ida?
Yeah, I think it's Ida. Ida's a name. I don't know if Ida is. Hey, Ida? Hi, Ida. Yeah, I think it's Ida. Ida Lupino.
I'm pretty sure it's Ida.
The interesting thing about her is she stars in this episode, and I think she does a pretty good job of portraying this bitter character.
Yeah.
Kind of becomes like a Crawford type, or, it happens a lot where it is this, like, aging actress in Hollywood.
Well, yeah, and I always find it interesting when they play this character, too, is she's very dramatic, and she's, like, constantly
She's over the top.
acting and portraying herself that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She stars in this episode of Twilight Zone. She directs one of the episodes of Twilight Zone, which will be down the line as we get, further into the Twilight Zone here. The Masks, which is one of the most famous episodes of the Twilight Zone. She directed that.
That's very interesting. I like that. Okay.
Yeah. So she stays within the Serling family too here. I guess we can just get into it. Any thoughts before we get into it?
Oh, no. I think we can. Let's do this.
It starts with an old romance picture scene, is how I put it. It's clearly supposed to be like this old-timey scene.
Right.
It's supposed to be old-timey for 1959. so it clearly is trying to be old-fashioned, like 1930s style picture show. Like I said, the narration here is good. The character is familiar. It's this old biddy that used to be a star.
You say old biddy, but I don't think she's really that old.
No, and I think that's part of the point too. Like
it's just like it's the actress has hit an age where they're like, oh, you can play a mom now instead of the daughter.
But okay, we'll get to that scene.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's it,
she
though.
Gets so
that's the thing. And she doesn't even look that old.
No. But, like, I'd say she's probably in her... I mean, it's hard to tell because back then,
I would say late 30s.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say 40s. It's hard to tell because you see Rod Serling and you're like, oh, he was in his early 30s. He looks like a 50-year-old man.
Exactly.
But
Plus it's black and white and it's kind of hard to tell.
But I guess to your point then, she's probably younger because she doesn't look that old. Do you want to know how old she was when this one came out?
Yes.
So I just looked at Okay, so she was born in 1918. So this was 1959. So if we do the math on that, she would have been 41.
Almost 40. Yeah, or 40. Yeah, 41.
So she's in her early 40s here. But to your point, it's not like it's not like she is the neighbor in Seinfeld where, she was in a Three Stooges short or something like that.
Yeah, she's not like in her 60s or 70s where it's like really obvious.
Right.
How old she is.
I mean, I think that is part of the satire in this and both Sunset Boulevard where it's like they don't have roles for these actresses that aren't 20 years old. They can't come up with anything better for them to do in their 40s. So we see this scene and it's being portrayed on a projector. It's on a movie set or on a movie screen. It's a movie from that time. Then a maid comes to give this woman who's been watching the movie, we find out is Barbara Jean Trenton, and her maid comes to give her a snack in her movie room, and it is a nice little study, like nice little movie room. As someone
cozy.
I mean, I have a movie room, or what I call my movie room. She's got her movie room. There's nothing wrong with having a movie room, but I think the problem is that she doesn't get out of the movie room.
Yeah, I don't think she ever leaves that room.
And the framing here is really good. The most famous thing I think about this episode is usually the framing of the projector, because most of the time when they're trying to make you feel uncomfortable in this episode, they frame it so you don't see the projector, but you see the light coming off of the projector. And there's usually like a couple of times in this, there's no score. It's just
Oh, yeah,
it's
it's
just
the
the
film.
sound of the projector. Mm-hmm. And they do that here and have the maid kind of be startled by the fact that Barbara Jean is up by the next to the projector, and she's holding. So I think, I mean, this is clearly purposeful from the show's standpoint. The direction was to do this, but she's holding her arm the same way that her on screen, because she's like, we see that she was the actress on screen.
Right.
She's like holding her arm the same way. Mm-hmm. So is this supposed to mean she's losing touch with like what's real and what's not, or was she in there acting it out herself? Or is it just that she's so attached to the past that she tries to even mimic the mannerisms that she did 20 years ago?
I think it's a little of all of that, honestly. I really think she's kind of losing touch with reality because she never leaves this room, wants to hold on to that acting and that portrayal that she did years ago. And so she just is continuously like doing it over again.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how
like,
many movies...
I can still do this. See, I am still this person.
How many movies do you think that this... Because, I mean, we find out that she doesn't like to leave the room. She sits in her room all day watching old movies. Is she only watching movies of herself, do you think?
I bet.
But how many could there be? Does she repeat the same...
I bet there's a lot. I actually bet there's quite a few because a lot of them are pretty short most of the time.
Oh, you think that these are like Nickelodeon shorts?
Well, I don't think like Nickelodeon shorts. I'm just saying
not Nickelodeon in the sense of today when we say Nickelodeon. Nickelodeon of like then, which just meant like a short, movie, a picture.
I bet there's some long ones and I bet there's short ones, and a lot of the times they did tons of movies because they were the actor or actress
they worked like porn stars.
Use. They're just
they did
constant.
Like eight movies a day.
Oh,
we got to get this movie done so that we can go shoot the next movie over there.
Probably.
Over there
I don't like
hours.
that you went to porn star though.
No, well, I mean that's just the saying of like, oh yeah, they did 8 movies in a day. They worked like a porn star.
Sure.
Whatever the saying is. I'm sure it was like, we got to get this done so that we can go to the next movie. We got 3 hours to shoot that one. Yeah,
right.
I bet. So,
and maybe it's not just her. Maybe it's also her co-stars, movies and stuff that she.
That's true.
Used
that
to act with.
She kind of pines over them.
Yeah.
Too. The maid goes out back into the hall, and the hallway, because it's like it's clearly like this. She was a big shot, Barbara Jean. She's got this mansion that she basically just sits in all day, and this is a hallway from the game Clue. Or the movie,
like a landing, like a
this huge ass. It looks like a courtyard. It's such a set. It looks like it has no ceiling.
Maybe that's the point. Maybe the whole idea is that her house also looks like a set.
I mean, bravo if you want to write the essay on that one, like how even the house is a set, because like. If you look in the back, there's clearly like a courtyard in the back. There's these gigantic doors to walk in.
Right.
The doors, which need to be slammed a few times in this episode, and they hilariously kind of... You can tell they're supposed to be like big, heavy doors, but they're just cardboard or whatever. So like some people will like kind of swing them and they just flap to the side. It is funny how cheapish they look, but you get the idea. She was a big shot. She lives in this mansion.
Mm-hmm.
So Barbara Jean's agent comes in, Mr. Wise, and Sally the maid says that she's worried about Trenton. She's worried about Barbara Jean because she hasn't gone out of there at all. This guy, he's got to be in more episodes of Twilight Zone, I feel like, but you've seen this guy before. Martin Balsam plays Mr. Wise. You know what he's in, Rachel?
What is it?
He's in Psycho. He's the detective in Psycho.
Yeah.
He's one of the jurors. I think he's the foreman in 12 Angry Men.
Oh, okay.
He's in a couple
I
things.
can like picture it now. Oh,
yeah.
Add both of those to the list though, by the way.
Well, yes. Yes, of course. I think you've been chomping at the bit to do 12 Angry Men.
I really want to. I want to watch that one
further
again.
Up. Yeah, that one might be coming up in a series or season close by. If we get good. I mean, wait a minute. We said we don't really care if we get good reviews or not. We're going to do this until we're not having fun with it anymore. So it doesn't matter.
Right. So who cares?
But if the people want it, the people will end up getting 12 Angry Men pretty soon.
If the people want it, they just have to wait a few months, and they probably will get what they want because it's just on the list already.
That's right. Well, yeah, I mean, at least a few months, because as we've discussed, like, you're getting these in binge form. But anyway, so he walks into the movie room to talk to Barbara, and the film stops. So again, you get this like lighting of the film stopping and him seeing like the last like bits of the film, and then she's just kind of like sitting in the chair and tells him to get a drink. Why don't you get a drink? What's his name in this? I said Mr. Wise, but which I'm assuming it's Danny. It's like such like a Mr. like Wise, like that's his last name because he's the Wise agent for But he says it's 11 a.m. Why would you start drinking? She clearly is just this like broken person because she just feels washed up. And he opens the. I did love that. I love two things about this. So he opens the curtains. And we get that old-fashioned, like, the sun, like, that, like, reaction from Barbara. And he... Very
dramatic, very over the top.
Yeah, absolutely over the top.
Which is perfect for the character.
Right. Right. That's what I'm saying. It's over the top, but she plays it exactly how you should play this character.
Yeah.
Over the top, bitchy. Like, there's no other way to describe it. Like, this, because she thinks she's a diva. Like, she thinks she should be on top. And I think that part of her thinks if she acts that way, that's the only way to keep herself in that limelight, in that vein, is to act like a diva.
Right.
So we get the sun, and then we also get Danny says, "It's a beautiful day. There's no smog." Like, I just loved that acknowledgement of the smog, the LA smog. I feel like that was definitely a Rod Serling being like, "There's fucking smog here.
Can't
like
stand
this
it.
city sucks."
God.
And just kind of like throwing that in there, like, "Oh yeah, it's a nice day. There's no smog because I got to deal with that every day." But he tries to convince her to leave the house. And they end up going over to a study, which is the other room of the house it is a study, right? Like, she's got almost two studies. She's got like a library here, her screening room, and then she's got like a study, which has like a bar and like pictures from the past and stuff in it.
Isn't there like a specific type, like they call it like the cigar room, or it's like
yeah, I could see that being like that.
Or something like that.
They might say that. I feel like she says
which usually has like the bar and everything. No, she probably does say the study. I don't remember what exactly she says.
But you're right. Like it's the cigar room. Yeah, head over to the cigar room and we'll pick up some.
Which usually looks like a study.
We're gonna hang out over here in the cigar room.
Well, they go there after dinner. That's where the men go.
That's right. To have their brandy and talk about
So maybe
business.
she can't have a cigar room. She has a study.
No,
because it's the same exact thing.
No, this lady feels to me like she was the one wheeling and fucking dealing. Like,
she would go to the cigar room. She did not care
that she was a woman. Like, she was going to that cigar room.
She'd have that, like, the cigarette thing that, like, elongated the cigarette.
That's right. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
A Cruella
100%.
DeVille. A classic DeVille.
So classic.
I don't know what that thing is called.
I don't know.
But I'm going to call it a DeVille.
Oh, it should be called a DeVille.
Folks at home, if you can get that going, start calling that a long... I mean, I don't think it exists anymore.
It's just a cigarette holder.
But if any of you, like, use jewels, maybe if you can get, like, a jewel that elongates it, so it looks... At that point, it would look like a giant kazoo.
Yeah,
but
it would look weird.
First of all, you shouldn't jewel. It's bad for you. But if you do, and you could get a DeVille-sized elongator, please do. Where the hell were we? So, Barbara's going through pictures. One is from 1933. There's another one from 1934. And I think when I say pictures here, I mean moving pictures. But Danny Wise is basically like, these are from the 30s. These are ancient. They're from so long ago. And like it's again like one of those things where it's like, oh right, like the 30s was a long time ago, but so was this. So it's like, okay, they're trying to tell me just how long ago it makes you feel old because it's trying to tell you how much older this is compared to their present, and to think about how long it's been since their present. It's just crazy.
That's why when you said she was from 1918 was when she was born,
1918.
I was like, jeez.
Yeah, I mean, she died in the 90s. She died in 1995.
Sure.
So the themes of this are clearly like don't cling to the past, and that is recurring in a lot of these Twilight Zone episodes too. Like you have to let go of the past, you have to move on, you can't be like, don't be too nostalgic. Like we'll get to the next couple episodes are definitely about that. Even in the ones that don't necessarily intend to be about that, I could make an argument that a lot of these Twilight Zones are about don't cling to the past, which maybe was part of the problem with the 50s and the way that Serling would see the world in 1960, because he was, as we pointed out, kind of an activist, kind of progressive, and the idea of people clinging to the past of a time when things were better, whether that be the 50s as a decade, well, yeah, exactly, might have been like an issue with him, where he thought that society needed to progress. You know what I mean?
No, like, I do, because well, you can tell with even just knowing him through the Twilight Zone that he looked to the future than the past.
Right.
So I get what you're saying, absolutely.
Well, and I mean, this is just like one example of that, specifically to clinging to your own past and like your own accomplishments and trying to come up with something for you, if you
instead of trying to come up with something new or different to do, you're just clinging to anything that you had before.
Like you could easily put a guy that was the star quarterback of the football team in high school and do the exact same story.
Yes.
Like
these are my trophies. This is my jersey type of thing, instead of
and pining over the cheerleader that he took to prom, or like
exactly
easily the same thing. So he tells her that he has set up an appointment for her with one of the movie studios. And back then there were, there are probably a few more movie studios than there are now, but that was kind of how, you had an agent, they were tied to the studios. Sometimes the actresses were tied directly to the studios, so it was probably like that in the past, where she would have contracts with different studios, and she would do like 5 films for this studio and 5 films for that studio or whatever. But she's got an appointment, and she's excited about this. This is where she runs to the study, and she's like, I hope it's a musical. Oh, it would just be lovely if it was a musical or a love story. And this is what reminded me, or I'm sure she's doing Norma Desmond, which I have never seen Sunset Boulevard either, aside from some clips. But I thought that she definitely reminded me of the neighbor from Seinfeld in this scene, where she's just like, so like, oh, wouldn't it be wonderful if it was a musical, Danny? Just like,
yeah,
this. Just oh, Danny, I hope it's a love story, Danny. And he knows that the part's not going to be the same as the other ones. He keeps trying to remind her, like, okay, but you have to remember, you're not in your 20s anymore. Like it's going to be slightly different. They're not just going to keep giving you that same kind of part. I mean, she's delusional to hope that it is going to be.
It's just, I think it's just tough for her to face the fact that it's like, well, you're looking older. You're looking a bit more distinguished. You're not going to have that like childish look to your face anymore that makes you look young,
Well, and it could be, I mean, again, it's definitely about Barbara Jean, but it could also be an indictment on the Hollywood system, because, I mean, take a look at, name an actor. They're probably older than you think.
Oh, yeah.
And their love interest is way younger than them.
Right.
A lot of the time.
Yeah.
Like in a Bruce Willis or like a Tom Cruise movie, the love interest is usually like 20 years younger than them.
Right.
But if you were to do that in the reverse, like you can't get away with having like a leading lady in her 50s and the guy's like 30 years old or whatever.
No. Which that definitely does talk about how Hollywood runs.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, maybe it's kind of that, too. Maybe that's like some subtext, because we already know that Serling doesn't like Hollywood that much, or like has his issues with the business side of it. So, I mean, I could see that too. Maybe that's subtext. Maybe that's not text at all. Folks at home, you get the drill by if you're listening. You didn't just pick up on the Twilight Zone episode, or maybe even if you did, and you got all the way to episode 4, like, you get it. We're looking for little things to pick up here, so
absolutely,
that's our thing. I probably have said that too much, but for any new listeners out there, I feel like we have to make sure that they understand. We're not just recapping what happened. We're also having fun with what's going on in the stories.
But that's the point.
So they go to this executive, this movie producer, and he doesn't really talk like that. I just always want a movie producer to be like, "Oh, hey there, Barbara." Like,
that's where like the cigars hanging out the side of their mouth.
The cigars hanging out of the side of the mouth.
Oh my god!
They're just like, "I got a great picture for you, honey." Like that kind of, the cigar chopping producer.
Yeah.
But he's not quite that. I mean, he seems kind of stereotypical, but not quite at that level.
Right.
And they tell her about the part. It's not big, but it would be a nice showcase for her. It would be a nice opportunity for her to show that she's... I got the impression that he's trying to say, like, it's a good opportunity to show that you're still out there.
Right, yeah. You're still, like, available, that you're still something.
I kept thinking of, again, another movie that's representative of this trope. Have you ever watched Mommy Dearest, Rachel?
I've seen parts. I haven't seen the whole thing.
Well, I mean, you've seen No Wire Hangers, I'm sure.
Of course. Of course.
But there's a scene very similar in that movie where they're talking to Joan Crawford about being in a movie and, like, she's delusional about getting old. Like, it's the same kind of thing. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, this has become kind of an archetype for things.
Absolutely.
I do love the back and forth where they're like, why do we always fight, Barbara? Why do you always fight with me? Because she's rejecting the ideas, because what it comes down to is they want her to play a mother.
Mm-hmm.
And they even say, like, early 40s. I think they might say early 40s.
Probably.
Which is exactly what the actress is. We don't know, like, how old she is in this, but that's how old the actress is. And she's, like, rejecting it. And the guy's just like, why do you always fight with me, Barbara? So she clearly was always a diva. Even back in the day, she, like, always was a diva.
Right. Picky. Very, very picky.
Which, like, I get. Like, if you were the star, you're gonna be picky. But she basically storms out. Danny tries to get her, why don't you just take a look at the script? And she's like, you take a look at the script, Danny. And
oh yeah, she just goes completely ballistic about it.
And she refuses to take the role, and storms out. The exec, or the producer, calls her a prima donna, which I loved, and then says, like, you aren't the number one lady anymore. You're just an aging broad with a scrapbook. It says we can set up a pot in the community chest because it'll be charity. It's such like it's like you can't quit, you're fired, like, kind of
pretty much, yeah.
Because it's like after the fact.
I'm firing you, yeah.
The moral of the story in this scene is don't burn bridges, apparently, because this guy's basically threatening to get her blacklisted.
Absolutely.
The agent. Good on this agent. If you're in a field and you have to have an agent, this guy sticks by her here.
He does. That's true.
Because he does not agree with her storming out of the office. He really does not. He thinks she should at least take the role.
Right. At least look at it. Like, come on.
But
give it a chance.
The agent goes up to the producer and he's like, next time I see you, I'll give you a swift kick in the teeth when you get old. But the agent, or the producer's got to be older than her. He is old.
I would think so. Absolutely.
I would at least assume. But I do like that he stands by her. And I will say that she was...
But he is a man, so old for a man is different than old for a woman.
Yeah,
remember that.
That's correct. Which is true. You're at that biological clock.
Right. Awful.
Like Mick Jagger having didn't he have a kid a few years ago and he's like in his 70s or something?
I think
weird,
so. Yeah.
Bizarre.
Still gross.
Yes, it's kind of gross. So the agent just tells the guy that he's petty. he's basically trying to tell her she's still got it. You still got stuff. So back at the mansion, she says no studio exists, and she tells them all off that her only world is her mansion. So she tells Danny that, like, she's not going to try for any more roles. She's perfectly fine living in her fantasy world with her movies, and the mansion is the only world that exists. So she's shutting herself off at this point.
Completely. Yep.
Another good little rant by her about old. I love that. And this again, everyone is going to be nostalgic for a place that never existed, because this is the 1959, and she's bitching that and saying that Hollywood isn't the same as it was back then. And, like, people say that today, and people said that 10 years ago, and people said that 20 years ago, and people said that 30 years ago, and people said that 50 years ago, and people said that 70 years ago, because the perfect time is the time that you remember, and not the real time, right?
Right. But your memory also changes over time as well. So, like, your memory of the past is usually, rose-colored glasses.
Right. Well, and she says that the drapes are drawn and the doors are locked. Actors wear undershirts and the movies have no sentiment, and there's rock and roll in it now. And it's the same thing where it's not her style. It wasn't what she was perfect at. Times have changed, and she's deciding not to change with the times.
Right.
That this is her, like, active decision to not change with the times.
Absolutely.
Which is great. It's just, I mean, a lot of people think of that now. Like, they don't want to change with the times. And in some cases, maybe you shouldn't change with the times, or in some cases, maybe we should bring some things back from the past. You have to learn how to adapt.
Right.
And she is actively choosing not to adapt, right? I just thought it was hilarious. So she shuts her eyes, and she just wants to wish it all away. Can she just wish it all away?
So dramatic.
And you kind of get this message back from Danny here, because he tells her that it's nostalgic. It's nice, but it's not true. It's phony. Like, this is clearly the message of the episode.
Absolutely.
If I wish hard enough, she says, it doesn't have to be phony. So, like, again, like, she's just actively deciding. She doesn't care if it really was phony. She wants to stay in the past.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Folks at home, I'm sure, I mean, right now, that I would say a lot of people want that to happen. I'm sure no matter what year you're listening to us in this, people want that to happen. It's just a fact of life that you have to move past. Like, there's no other way to say it. Like, we live in the past here on Shelf Life, but we're doing we're in a fun way. You know what I mean? You can engage the past, and you can engage nostalgia like we do on this show, but you have to do it in a fun way, and you have to realize that it's all for fun, or it's all for your entertainment, and it's not for real. You shouldn't be basing your life on the past.
We're not doing that. We're not, like, basing everything on the past. We're not looking at it that way. We're trying to figure out whether the past still holds up to the present.
That's right.
And for the future.
And for the future. For your future.
So that's right. So we're using the past to find that out.
That's right. That's right. Very good. So she wants her friends. One of them's been dead for 5 years. As Danny tells her. It's such good delivery. Like, I don't think it's like this, but in my... Go ahead.
They really make her really old by going, well, your friend's been dead for 5 years. The way they make it sound like it's like they're dropping like flies because of how fucking old they are.
Well, again, you don't know how old she's supposed to be
True.
in this episode. And two, if it is one of those situations where the co-stars were older than her, then
true.
maybe they were in their 60s, and she,
So
like,
they were
maybe
already
they are
as
in
old
their
as she is
60s
now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead and finish your thought, though.
My thought was that I don't think he says it like this, but in my head, he says it like this, where he goes, this one's been dead for 5 years. like, kind of saying, you're here with ghosts. She wishes for things that are dead. And this is the point where he tries to slam the door, she slams the door, one of them slams the door. And it won't slam shut because it's just not real. So it's a sound like this, and it pops backward because it just doesn't want to stay shut. And I guarantee you that these movies weren't as good as she thought they were. Maybe they
Probably.
were. Maybe she was like an all-star, like Oscar-winning actress, and maybe she was because she like could act this way. But like something tells me that they weren't as good as she thinks they are.
Or not all of them were.
Yeah.
She probably had her good ones, and then, like I said, they probably have her do so many, and then it's like, well, only a few of those are actually any good.
So we get a little bit of a time jump here, and the agent comes back later, and Sally tells him she hasn't even gone to bed sometimes now. She just stays in there. She stays in that room and doesn't come out. And Sally says she thinks she's seen her on the screen creepily. I wanted Danny to be like, well, yeah, she's watching videos of her, like you are seeing her on the screen.
Right, of course she's on the screen. She's watching her old videos. Yeah.
I caught this, and folks at home, I'm going to ruin a little bit of this for you. So ignore this next 30 seconds if you don't want to know it. But there's a bad take here where he goes to say a line and he flubs it, so he says it again. Did you catch that?
I don't think I caught that.
Yeah. It's a simple line. It's just kind of like what do you mean? What do you mean she's not, like, it's kind of like that. Like, he starts it, he flubs it, and he says it again. And, I mean, it's natural enough that, like, a person would flub whatever he said, like, so it could stay, but, like, it clearly
kind of like
was
a stutter
like
almost.
Yeah, but it clearly was like damn it. And then he says it again, like, hoping they would edit it, and they didn't.
God. Yeah, I didn't catch that. That's funny.
He tells Barbara that he's brought one of her old co-stars is in town, and it's the one that looks kind of like Robin Hood-y, some sort of, like, you know, or maybe it was like an old like pirate movie, like something like that. Like it's one of the romances she was in.
Okay, yeah.
And he tells her because he thinks it may help her. She gets to see him, and he tells her, and she's so excited to see him. Oh, it's going to be wonderful. And she's like, I'm going to go get ready, and then bring him to the study. She runs in there, and what do you think it is, Rachel? Is it like? I wrote down that Walt Disney is there.
Yeah, I can see it pretty much. Oh my god.
Her reaction is so rude.
Oh my god.
To this She's disgusted by him.
Absolutely disgusted. That's a good way of saying it.
Because she pictures him as being like 30 years old or whatever. Mm-hmm. And now he's just this like old man. He's got these Coke bottle glasses.
Yeah.
He owns a string of supermarkets in Chicago.
That sounds so goofy, but whatever.
So I guess back in the day they didn't pay, where I was saying like maybe some of these movies weren't as good as she thinks they were, because if the lead actor in this didn't have enough money to keep acting or didn't want to keep acting, or I think maybe got, oh, you're old now, you're getting pushed out. Yeah. So he moved on. But the point is like, oh, he moved on to like own this string of supermarkets. But
he may still have a mansion and stuff. You don't know.
Well, if he owns a string of supermarkets, he's doing pretty well.
Exactly.
He's a grocer.
No, he's not a grocer. He's like the business in the back grocer.
That's not what a grocer is? Because what's a grocer? Is that like the manager at an old-timey grocery store?
I don't.
Folks at home, let us know if grocers still exist. Like, if you are a grocer, do you consider yourself a grocer? Or do you need to, like, be in the 1950s and delivering milk to people's houses to be considered that?
I guess that would make sense. It says a person who sells food and small household goods.
Yeah.
I guess.
He's a grocer.
I guess that's true. Yeah. I guess I was thinking of, like, the people that are physically in the grocery store selling it.
I thought you were going to say... I thought you were going to say that you become one when you go to the grocery store. I'm going to go become a grocer and pick up some cheese and milk.
I just didn't think, like, the management side of it for some reason. Like, the owner.
Yeah.
Like, unless he's, like, physically in the building actually selling you items for some reason, it didn't, like, click that they would be technically grocers.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I would consider the manager of a grocery store to be the grocer.
Sure.
More so. But folks at home, please write into the mailbag. Let us know if we're wrong about this. Rate and review. Give us that 5-star review. Give us a 1-star review saying that we didn't know what a grocer was. But Please don't do that. We don't need.
Please don't. 5-star, and then tell me that I
And
was
then
wrong.
say that we didn't know what a grocer was. 5 stars for not knowing.
We'll
what
give you a
grocer
shout
was.
out on one of our grab bag episodes.
They didn't know what a grocer was. 5 stars. So her line here is that, isn't it funny we see people the way they were and not how they are? So again, she knows, right? She knows she's delusional at this point.
Absolutely.
She just wants to believe the lie.
Yep.
She wants to believe her big lie. I've heard that before somewhere. She believes it. And it's not a lie if you believe it. George Costanza.
Oh my god.
I'm trying to link everything together.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
I do like that they keep the camera on her the whole time over his shoulder. We never see his reaction to her being an asshole to him.
Right.
We only see her disappointment and how
Right.
old and dorky this man has become.
Sure. I kind of I imagine the Ralph Wiggum heartbreaking.
Oh, you think that we missed the...
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't know, because she points to his picture and it's like, look at this. This is what you used to be. And it's like, you may as well be dead. Like, she's so
man. It's so
mean
awful.
to him.
It's so awful. Exactly. That's what I mean. I just picture that awful like fall in his face, and
I mean, to his
or
credit,
he's just like, you know what? I am fucking old. I am old.
and I am a grocer. I'm a successful
Exactly.
Chicago grocer.
I moved on. So do you. You're old. Get over it.
I mean, he does kind of just let it go because he hugs her and he's
Yeah.
like, goodbye, Norma. I was going to say Norma.
Norman.
No, I was going to say Norma, because it clearly, Norma Desmond. So I was going to say Norma Dean because it's Barbara
Okay.
Jean.
Oh my god.
The names. There's too much pop culture information in my head. I could be
absolutely.
like, imagine if we took all of this stupid knowledge and like transferred it into something useful. Maybe we'll have another podcast about useful information if this one takes off, Rachel. I don't know what that one will be called.
Couldn't tell you because I don't have any useful information in my head anymore.
So she kind of shoves the guy away too. Like, she pushes the guy away after telling him he might as well be dead. Just totally mean. And the agent basically gives up and walks away. Like, fine, whatever. If you want to do this, you can do this. She goes into the dark room and turns on the projector, and we get that light again. So we had that like eerie glow again from the projector. And then she creepily walks up to the screen and says, "There's my Jerry." Like, there's the co-star. Like, the co-star's name is
Right.
Jerry. And she's like, "There you are, Jerry. So wonderfully young. There was a strange old man here who said he was you." She wants to be with these people on the screen.
Right.
She wants to be
to
up there.
physically be there.
So then we get Sally again bringing her a snack. All this woman does is bring her a snack.
Question about Sally. I feel like she's a bit pushy and a bit nosy. You are the maid in like
You're
the
the help.
50s?
No, you're
Well,
fucking wrong.
honestly, I'm surprised at how pushy and like nosy and talkative she is. She's yelling at her, like, "Get out of this room and
She's
eat your food." And
she's
it's
her
like,
she's
what?
her Alfred. She's
I guess
trying to
so.
like prop her up a little bit. Maybe they have a more cordial relationship.
That's true.
They've
That's
known
true.
each
It
other
just,
for
it
a
just
long
seemed
time.
kind of odd.
So you'd be more
Because
comfortable.
she acts all mousy, and then all of a sudden she's like this, "Do your things," and I'm like, "Calm down, lady.
She's trying to encourage
know
her.
your role." No.
You are the help. Get back to the fucking kitchen.
I just thought from back in the day that just seemed kind of odd.
I didn't think it was as odd, but I am used to the Bruce Wayne Alfred Pennyworth relationship.
Sure.
So I am used to a butler telling him to get his ass in gear.
Yeah. Maybe movies are just lying about how people used to talk to each other.
Sally knocks at the door and there's no answer. So she walks in and she screams in terror
Yeah.
at whatever she sees. We don't see what she sees. All we see is like that and the light, the glowing light from the projector.
Right.
And she drops the tray. And it goes to a commercial break. So what happens next is Danny comes back. The agent comes back. And Sally is basically saying, like, she was there. She wasn't there. The projector room is empty. The lights are on. This is the first time that we've seen this room with the lights on in it. And Sally's just like, she wasn't any. I can't find her anywhere. Danny's like, was she?
Okay, hold on, because that sounds odd. She screams bloody murder.
Yes.
And then she goes, I don't know where she is.
Yes. And
like, wait, what?
That's my. Thank you. Thank you for pointing this out. That's my issue with this final act, this final revelation, because this build-up here is very good. We don't know where she is. We don't know, like, what's going on.
Yep.
And the scream in terror makes you think, like, something weird happened.
Like,
to
she
her.
saw something happen.
Yeah. But then it's like, well, wait, where did she go? And then he gets the idea to turn off the lights and turn on the projector.
Which, where does that come from? Or does he think, oh, she'll come out because she's hiding until her movie's on, and then she'll pretend she's acting again? Like, what are you thinking is gonna happen? I'm sorry. Yeah.
Maybe or did he think that she, like, filmed another home movie? Like, I don't know.
Oh, now she's doing home movies.
I don't know. Like, that's the thing. I don't understand
the thought process.
Yeah. Another thing about this is it is 1959, so, like, televisions existed. Televisions were huge.
Right.
So I don't know. I feel like maybe she would have had a TV in that room too. I don't know. So
well, no, that's her projector room.
Yeah, you're right. It's her projector.
It's literally her films. Like
yeah, no, you're right. She's using her.
She moved the TV. There's a TV room. She's got a mansion.
So this
she
is
has a cigar
where
room.
Yeah, you're right. She has another room that's a TV room. I'm sorry. You have 2 TVs? I don't think that this is a great payoff. Because what we find out is she's just on the screen, surrounded by her friends at the mansion. So she's in her mansion, in that, like, courtyard, hallway area. And what we get, like, what you see is fairly iconic for the Twilight Zone. When this was on Netflix, when we were when we were recording this, I watched it on Netflix. I assume now it's on Paramount Plus, listeners. I don't know when you're listening to this, but
yeah, they currently own it, but
or you have it on Blu-ray because we told you to buy it on Blu-ray, or you realize that you should.
It's on your shelf life. It's understandable.
I will probably get it when the price is right. The Netflix thumbnail thing that shows different scenes from each show. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
One of the ones that it shows your classics. One of the ones it shows is Danny slowly standing up as the projector starts playing.
Right.
So I think that is kind of like one of those iconic images. And it is. It's a great shot. The cinematography and the acting and everything. Like, it makes you think something is horrifying. Like, he's selling it.
Like, he's like, holy crap. You can tell he just, like, realized something in his eyes. That he's seeing something.
And it's just that she's just on screen. Like, she's just, like, with these characters that exist in her movies. And the idea, I guess, is that she somehow got sucked into the film reel. This is where I don't know what happened. And that's what's so confusing about it.
No, I think that is what it is. I think she gets to stay in that moment in time. I think she wished so hard to be in that time again that she gets pulled in and forced to stay there forever in that moment in time.
And that's where I don't know what they're going with. They could have spun it in, is she dead? Is she trapped?
All of the above. Maybe it's kind of like one of those she is dead and she got sucked into it type of thing. She'll live on in the movies. And I don't know.
Okay,
I mean, it's kind of an odd thing. I can't really tell what
maybe maybe you're right. Maybe maybe that's what it is. She lives on through her movies. Like, that's her legacy, I guess. But
it doesn't work with, like, the rest of the message.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it should be. She wished. To finish this up, Danny starts shouting, like, "Barbara Jean, come back, Barb!" And she, like, is holding a scarf, and she acts like she can kind of hear him saying, like, she hears somebody off in the distance, like, calling for her.
Right.
And she drops the scarf as she leaves the screen, and the projector runs out. And this is where I don't... Is she in an alternate universe? Like, I mean, it's the Twilight Zone, so it could be an alternate universe. Did she travel back in the past? Is she in an alternate timeline, an alternate 1959?
Well, because if, like, he's calling out to
Like,
her
Back
to
the
come
Future
back
too?
to the future. Yeah, there you go. If, like, it's like, come back to the future. Or is he's like, because he's calling out to her to come back. And it's kind of parallel to how he's trying to say, stop sitting in the past. Like, come here, come into the future.
Right.
You know, but
Or the
she's
present.
still, or the present. And she's just still focusing and walking back to the past.
She leaves. He contemplates what it could possibly mean. He leaves that room and then finds the scarf on the ground, which is such a Rod Serling ending. Like, oh, was it real? Was it not real? Did she film this? Did she make them real? Like, were they there and then she filmed it? That's what I'm saying.
But if she filmed it wouldn't be on the screen at the same time as she's filming it, right?
Well, that's my point. Okay, so that's where I was like, okay, did she commit suicide?
Well, that's what I kept thinking. Maybe she did commit suicide. Maybe that's what he was yelling for her to, like come
and
back
realize,
to him.
Like, this
and it was actually
like her last
suicide.
like act was like to film this faux movie, and then she jumped off the mansion or something.
Yeah, like this is her. This is where my life energy is going to be from now on, is in the movies. This is where I will live on, is in the movies. And she commits suicide. And he's trying to, like, talk her down.
And I don't even know, like, how that would work. Because, like, wouldn't she... Because
they
couldn't find her body. Like, did she like, it's so weird. And
I don't know.
He smiles.
It's the Twilight Zone, for one.
He smiles and says, "To wishes, Barbara. To wishes." And that's the end of the show. And it's like, what was the message here?
Yeah, because then he smiles. He shouldn't be happy about that, because he wants her to move on. And now he's like, I guess she got her wish. Yeah. I'm so happy for her. What?
I get that not every Twilight Zone ends in a cynical manner. You have happy endings in some Twilight Zones.
Yeah.
But it feels like the message here should have been, she got what she wanted. She got what she wished for. And she regrets it.
Yeah, and she, like, should be pounding on the screen.
Yeah,
wanting to get out.
She realizes she's stuck
like,
now.
No, I'm stuck now. Let me out, let me out. Should have been, like, the way it ended. And not, that's... goodbye.
Yeah.
No.
It's, like, not what happened. And I know what the ending of Sunset Boulevard is. But we won't get into that, because
no spoilers. I want to know.
For you. It's just, I don't know if that's what, if Serling was trying to do a similar tone. Like, I just feel like it was muddled, the ending. But that is the end. As he just says, to wishes, Barb, and Barbara gets to live for something in the movies with the characters that she loves, I guess. It's so hard to figure out what happened. That's 16mm Shrine. So, Rachel... I'll let you go first. Does this episode have shelf life? Is it shelf worthy? You putting it up there?
So here's my thoughts. I think it still is a story that is brought up today, and I think it's still like a story that's within different genres and stuff like that they use. Right? It's that trope. Okay. However, I'm not really a big fan of this episode. For me, this one was kind of drawn out.
Okay.
It was a little slow. I couldn't really get into it as much as I was getting into the other ones, which was like the surprise if I got into like the old Western one. Right. We have like this one that I was kind of like, okay. I'm kind of like, all right, I get the point. I understand the concept, but I don't know if I don't think it would live on my shelf.
Okay. Before I give my answer, here's the ending narration, because I was hoping maybe this would give us an idea. So this is, cool. I'll do Rod Serling here. To the wishes that come true, to the strange, mystic strength of the human animal, who can take a wishful dream and give it a dimension of its own, to Barbara Jean Trenton, movie queen of another era, who has changed the blank tomb of an empty projection screen into a private world. It can happen in the Twilight Zone. So that makes it
doesn't
sound...
help. No, here, it doesn't help because it still doesn't work with like what they're trying to get across here. Oh, you wish enough, you get to stay in the past forever? What?
Yeah, it just doesn't fit okay. The next
this
episode...
is why it doesn't live on my shelf.
The next episode, I love the next episode of the Twilight Zone that we'll get into. It just doesn't seem to fit. But yeah, I don't know. There's a good enough character story here for me to really want to put it on the shelf.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
If for nothing, and then the cinematography, the lighting is
that's
so
really
good.
It's good.
Like for a movie from 1959 on TV. I mean, it gets to live with the rest of the group.
Oh yeah.
But to your point, I don't know if I'm gonna watch this episode a lot. If it's really gonna come back for me to watch it again. So I'm borderline. It's probably not, but there's enough in there where I definitely would say like you can watch this one and enjoy it.
Oh yeah.
But
then get confused at the end, you know.
You're gonna get confused at the end, and you might not watch it a lot.
No satisfaction at the end.
Or maybe not after once or twice. So that is 16mm Shrine. Rachel, this next batch of episodes.
Oof.
Holy shit, ladies and gentlemen.
Kind of exciting.
This is a main event. The
is.
Next 4 to 5 episodes is a main event of Twilight's. What is? There's something behind.
When you see something?
Well, there's something behind you. That I just don't.
Wait,
do you
does it
see?
look like... No, there's like a thing. I think it's
behind
the same
me.
thing. Yeah.
Well, how could it be the same thing? We're
I don't know.
Hundreds of miles apart.
I mean,
But
I don't know if I can